is it about the athletes and what's happening on the courts or in the fields, but it's about the families that's coming. This is truly a tourism and hospitality opportunity. A couple other figures I want to share with you. For example, we had Clipper Race. That estimated economic impact was $1.6 million. That was over 1,743 night stays at our hotels. We brought in 11,547 visitors. One other example I want to give is recently we had the U.S. women's national team versus Costa Rica. That economic impact estimate was $6,481,338. Once again, over 17,000 overnight stays. 6,212 overnight stays with 17,000 plus visitors. That is not only from a tax perspective, that's our hotel rooms, that's patronizing our restaurants, is key. About a week and a half or so ago, I met with the commissioner of Atlantic 10, and their headquarters is now here in Washington, D.C. But the Capital One Arena was filled for that tournament. And the beauty of that particular week, we also hosted the CAA tournament at Care First Arena for men's and women's basketball. So the talent in the landscape and the economic impact that was driven just by that week alone was unimaginable. And we can have more of that with this sports capital designation that you're putting forth.
And I think it's important that this measure passes, because I think a lot of people think of the District of Columbia as just a sleepy government town. They're likely familiar that it's the capital of the United States, but they aren't always as familiar with our sports teams, professional sports teams, our collegiate sports teams, our amateur sports environment. You all are really tackling all those things at all those multiple levels. You do a lot with youth sports. I've been to the convention center. I've seen how many people come to see the volleyball tournament, which I think is one of the biggest in the country. Just last year, I was there with the basketball tournament for girls. There was a boys one last year as well. And so there's a lot going on across the different levels, from professional to collegiate to amateur. And I wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about how you're all involved in that. And how
we had over 36,000 visitors for the Capital Volleyball Classic that we host at the Convention Center. I mean, to have all those courts filled, and it's just so beautiful to see how that's impacting downtown Washington, D.C. And to your point, we are doing extremely well across the board in all of our sports. We have a very diverse sports portfolio: soccer, volleyball, and we're also working very hard on the rugby side of it. On Monday, we announced that we will have the U.S. Rugby and World Rugby, and we're going to have a game out at Audi Field in July. That's going to bring all these international visitors as well, and that is key. Also, too, is the District of Columbia. When families come, they extend their stay beyond the sporting events. They visit our museums, which are free. This gives you an opportunity to not only have the parents, the kids, but the grandparents, the aunts and uncles, that will travel with the team, and the families as well, and then extend their stay. So it's crucially important that we make this type of investment. Another thing that I want to highlight, Chairman McDuffie, is we have some homegrown athletes right here in Washington, D.C. For example, Raja Caruth, who's only one of 5 African-American NASCAR drivers, calls Washington, D.C. home. That's important. Not only do we have to focus on NASCAR and elevating Raja, but we brought in Formula One as an opportunity. Now, we couldn't get the Formula One cars on the street, but we got the go-karts here.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Just to make sure that we are tackling some of the more technical aspects of the bill would designate the District of Columbia as the official sports capital of the United States, and it would require Events DC to develop and implement a plan to promote, support, and enhance the district status as the nation's premier destination for sports events, teams, and activities. Is that something that you all are able to do at Events DC?
We will deliver. as requested. Our mission every day is to focus on elevating sports, highlighting our conventions and meetings. So we will deliver. I'm looking forward. We have information that we've already started gathering that we can add on to this opportunity for this strategic plan. But we will deliver. We will deliver within 120 days. And, you know, Events DC team, we're going to deliver it earlier than 120 days.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Gates. I'm going to turn now to Ward 7 Councilmember Felder for a round.
Mr. Chairman, you asked majority of my questions, so I'll be very brief. From my experience when talking to visitors, there's starting to be a trend that is, when you talk about DC experience, you cannot mention that without talking about Events DC and the great work that you guys are doing. And when we're talking about this designation of the district officially being the sports capital of the United States of America, just a question: as there's more excitement, as there's more foot traffic, as there becomes more of a desire to use your facilities, is there anything that you guys are thinking about to develop a centralized website that visitors can view or residents can view in advance of the sporting event, just to kind of get a heads up in terms of what some of these world attraction events?
Now, thank you for that question. So with our Events DC website, we have it very robust. We have 11 venues in our portfolio, but working closely, as I said, with our partners across all sports professional and collegiate teams, developing hyperlinks so we can highlight all of our websites, and we will be working with Destination DC under their Washington DC org website as well to have that centrally focused. Another opportunity that we're taking advantage of is using our creative services department. So not only from a website perspective, but utilizing digital media by creating digital content and videos to highlight everything that we have happening and forthcoming here in Washington, DC as well. So we'll utilize our creative services team, and we got to take advantage when we have these conventions and meetings in town, developing palm cards to, you know, highlight and put in the gift bags from our convention and visitors that are coming from that perspective as well. And it is a lot going on here in Washington, D.C. from a sports perspective.
And I know Chairman McDuffie mentioned the need to develop a plan to figure out how you're going to deal with the influx. Within your strategic planning, if conversations have started to take place, do you anticipate a need to expand? Do you think you need more staff to support all these sports teams coming to the district?
Thank you for that question. I am aware of the financial climate that we're currently facing here in the district. So at this time, we'll utilize our Events DC resources to complete the plan. Now, what I anticipate is the next steps of that plan and the implementation of that plan. We may need to have some support at that time, because I think that it's going to be crucial that the results of that plan allow us to move forward in the necessary action steps to continue to elevate us, not only as a world-class destination, but as the sports capital.
Thank you, Director Gates.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember Felder. We appreciate it, Director Gates. I don't actually have any more questions for you. Anything else you'd like to add to the record before we move to the next witness?
Just one other thing I wanted to highlight, how awesome, it is from a youth perspective. I want to thank you for the investment that you're doing for our youth and community, particularly in sports. Last year, we had the largest number of applicants and nonprofits applying for our community grants. We issued about 103 grants and roughly about $625,000. The board has been committed to up that to $750,000, but your $1 million investment is crucial and key. As you were giving your intro as well this morning, and you talk about the business of sports, I'm sitting here as a direct result of the sports management side of it. My master's degree is in sports management, and it's that education approach, the marketing branding, that has me sitting here today. So as a testament for our youth for tomorrow, I can definitely stand here and say I've walked in those shoes. So I just want to commend you and thank you for that. I also want to do another Special shout out, DC has always been like the home of boxing. We had an opportunity to work with Lamont Roach in the big Javante Tank fight that was in the Barclays. That sold out event that took place there really elevated Washington, D.C. to the point go-go music was playing in the Barclays Center, but it also just elevated us from a marketing and branding. So I want to shout out those couple of things, and consistency is key along with customer service. We are the sports capital, and the entire world globally will know that. Thank you for this legislation.
Thank you for that. I feel like there's probably a rematch in order for that.
Sounds like it needs to happen. Sounds like it needs to happen in the sports capital, right?
In the sports capital of the United States. Let's figure out how to make that happen. Appreciate it.
Sounds good to me.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
We're going to call our first panel of public witnesses. Really excited to hear from Jason Levian, Mark Ingram, Kim Stone, and Chris Dunleavy. Good morning, gentlemen. Really good to see you. Glad to have you each here today. Really looking forward to hearing your testimony. We'll start from my right and your left with Jason. If you can hit the button at the base of your mic, there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on such an issue that is very near and dear to my heart, and I think very important for the district. I don't know if you'd like me to read my testimony or just give some opening remarks generally.
Whatever you prefer.
Okay. For the record, I'm the CEO and co-chairman of DC United. I'm honored to appear before you today to express my support for Bill 26-119, the official sports capital of the United States Designation Act of 2026. I first moved to DC 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago, unfortunately, to attend Georgetown University. I made the most significant investment in my career here in the district when I acquired the controlling ownership of DC United in 2012. I believed deeply then, as I do even more so now, about Washington, D.C. being the sports capital for the United States and the growth and potential for sports in D.C. And I chose a sport such as soccer in part because of its little d democratic nature, where kids can play at any level, where there's such a diverse, passionate community that loves the sport, where it's such a global sport. It's really the world's sport, the world's beautiful game. And I believe deeply that Washington, D.C. could be a leader in the United States in growing the sport of soccer. I would really like to thank certain people that have supported us in that effort over the past 13 years. I'd like to start with you, Chairman McDuffie, for your leadership, your dedication to youth sports on all levels, and bringing everyone together here today to talk about how we take the next step, what the vision is for building on the momentum we have. I'd also really like to thank the CEO of Events DC, Angie Gates. She's been an incredible partner and a leader, and her tireless effort to promote DC and the events in DC and the opportunities for growth in DC have been amazing. She's been a fantastic partner, has Events DC, has been from the beginning when we first built Audi Field in 2018. They're a key foundational partner in everything we do, and we work tirelessly and effectively with Events DC and see the real fuel that Events DC provides in moving things forward. It's been incredible, that partnership. And I'd like to thank the mayor for her leadership. Without her and her leadership, I saw it firsthand when we tried to build Audi Field and work to do that and try to propel the neighborhood that is Buzzard Point moving forward. And she's been an incredible advocate for sports and its growth. I'm so behind her vision. We all are for building DC as the sports capital. And I think her vision has been extraordinary and really been something that's inspired me as we move forward. So thank you very much for being here. I also want to thank my partner and close friend, Mark Ingram, and our other partner, Vernon Davis, who couldn't be with us today because he's filming a movie. But Mark flew up here from his home in Florida to be here to testify. He's a business partner. He's an investor in DC United. I first met Mark at a foundation charity event in Maryland many years ago, and we struck up a friendship that led to a business partnership and relationship. And he's been such an advocate for youth sports. Our kids play together. His kids are a little better than mine. But we've got a wonderful friendship, and he's so dedicated to sports in the district. And Mark, I want to thank you for making the time to travel up here today to be a part of this hearing.
Well, Jason,
Appreciate it.
Well, Jason, I appreciate you for inviting me to come up here. I appreciate y'all for having me. But no, I'd just like to just share a little bit about my testimony, how important sports are and to the community, and how it develops young men and young women to be great citizens in the world. So, Chairperson McDuffie, council members, and staff in attendance today, I appreciate the opportunity to testify today in support of Bill 26-119, the official sports capital of the United States Designation Act of 2026. As a 12-year NFL veteran, Heisman Trophy winner, co-owner of DC United and DC Power FC, I am a lifelong advocate for the power of athletics, and I'm honored to stand in favor of this recognition for Washington, D.C. Sports have been an integral part of my life and helped me become the man standing before you today. I was born into a sports family. My father played in the NFL for 10 years, won a Super Bowl. My grandfather played professional football, and my mother was an all-state track athlete in high school. After our faith and education, sports were at the center of our lives. Growing up in Flint, Michigan, sports were an extension of our education in the classroom. It was through sports that I learned life lessons that make up the values, morals, and principles I live by. Hard work, commitment, sacrifice, discipline, and the ability to communicate and work with people of all different cultures and backgrounds towards one common goal. These skills were very critical in earning a scholarship to the University of Alabama, my 12-year career in the NFL, and my current job as an analyst with Fox Sports College every football Saturday. Every step of that journey reinforced the transformative power of sports in shaping my life and others and opening doors to success. So how does a kid who was born in New Jersey when his dad played for the Giants, raised in Flint, Michigan, and went to college in Alabama end up before you today? Well, sports. So I grew to love the DMV area while playing for the Ravens in 2019. The area accepted me, showed me love. I was involved in the community, and I grew to appreciate the people and culture of D.C. and felt a strong connection to the area. I met Jason. He told you kind of our story. It was at my charitable foundation's Christmas giveaway, and we connected, and I quickly understood the powerful role that professional soccer through DC United plays in the nation's capital. We became friends. Our relationship grew over the next couple of years, and there was an opportunity to invest in DC. It was really a no-brainer. It was really a no-brainer to me to join one of the most decorated teams in Major League Soccer's 30-year history. The team has built a diverse and passionate community. I have seen firsthand what a driving force it plays in the city. But beyond professional sports, DC has cultivated some of the nation's greatest athletes, setting the stage for future generations to excel. The presence of strong youth programs, collegiate teams, and community sports initiatives further solidifies its standing as a premier sports hub. I understand what it looks like and feels like to be a part of big-time sporting events. As an athlete, I played in the national championship game at the Rose Bowl, two international NFL games in London, and won my Heisman Trophy in Times Square. As a fan, I was able to attend the World Cup in Brazil, and currently as an analyst, I work at the top college football game every weekend with over 80,000 fans. I believe that D.C., being a world-class city, can host these type of events as well. Rightfully recognizing D.C. as the official sports capital of the United States will drive investment into the city, including programs and facilities that give young athletes the opportunity they deserve. I know from personal experience how access to quality coaching, mentorship, and resources can change a young athlete's life. and this legislation would expand those opportunities for aspiring stars from all walks of life. Sports are a unifying force. They teach discipline, teamwork, and resilience, lessons that extend far beyond the field. As someone who has dedicated my life to sports, I can say with certainty that this designation would not only celebrate DC's existing achievements, but also help build a stronger, more connected sports community for the future. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to express my support for Bill 26-119 and help solidify Washington, D.C.'s legacy as the nation's true sports capital. I look forward to answering any questions you have.
Appreciate your testimony. It's good to have you here today. I will have a couple of questions for you. Want to hear next from Chris Dunleavy. Glad you could be here. Look forward to your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and members of the Council. Pleasure to spend time with you this morning. If you don't mind, I'm going to go off script a little bit from the written testimony I submitted, mostly to make sure I keep within the time limit you've politely asked for. My name is Chris Dunleavy. I'm here on behalf of Old Glory DC, a professional rugby team for which I chair the ownership group, which includes partners such as Paul Sheehy of the Sheehy Auto Store Ownership Group, and I'm pleased to say we have some other partners, including Paxton Baker, who is here in the audience with us today. We strongly support this legislation and believe it is important to the future economic development of Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, the people of D.C. and indeed the people of America love rugby. They just don't all know it yet. Rugby is admittedly a modestly popular sport in the United States today, but it is huge business worldwide, and that represents a tremendous opportunity for Washington, D.C. and the international city for which it's known. We are growing aggressively in the United States. Our team, Old Glory, plays in the one professional league in the U.S., coast to coast, and we also grow not only the professional game, but at the youth and amateur levels, we cultivate growth in programs from the youth, school, and senior levels. Internationally, rugby is the second most popular sport in the world, following only soccer, and indeed a good example of this is the Rugby World Cup, which is the third largest sports event by attendance anywhere in the world. It's held every 4 years, and the last one that was held was in France in 2023, drew more than 2.4 million attendees over a 2-month period to the tournament and created an economic impact of $750 million. Now, in part, because of the efforts of Events DC and Old Glory in partnership and the way we have cultivated awareness with World Rugby and USA Rugby about the Washington, D.C. area over the last couple of years, World Rugby has awarded the 2031 Rugby World Cup to the United States, but not yet chosen the cities where it will be played. We are hosting a series of international rugby games from last year through this coming summer, which Angie referenced, and we're proud to say we're building that reputation of D.C. as a hub. But we believe legislation like this can make clear the message that D.C. needs to be the place where that should be the hub of those games and that tremendous economic impact. Finally, I would add that the benefit of us creating and growing a professional team is in part building the visibility of the sport, but that in turn is what builds participation, growth at the youth level, to help teach and instill the tremendous values of our sport. I can share lots more statistics on our growth prospects and economic impact and what we hope to achieve, and how we have partnered very successfully with Events DC under the leadership of Andy Gates and this committee, but I will hold that for any question and answer period. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for that testimony. We've got one more witness on this panel. It's Crispus Gordon with Monumental Sports. Look forward to hearing your testimony. Glad you can make it today. Thanks.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Chairman McDuffie, members of the Committee on Business and Economic Development, thank you for the opportunity to testify regarding Bill 26-119, the official sports capital of the United States Designation Act of 2025. I am Crispus Gordon III, the Vice President of Government Relations and Strategic Affairs for Monumental Sports and Entertainment, and a Ward 7 resident. Monumental Sports is one of the most innovative sports and entertainment companies in the country, with one of the most diverse partnership groups in all of sports. MSC owns and operates 5 professional sports teams: the Washington Wizards, Washington Mystics, Washington Capitals, Capital City Go-Go, as well as the NBA 2K Leagues, District Gaming. Miami Sports Entertainment also operates Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C., and Care First Arena, formerly known as the ESA, located on the St. Elizabeth's campus in Ward 8. Since opening in 1997, Capital One Arena has been a cornerstone of the District of Columbia's economy, generating nearly $1 billion in tax revenue. Capital One Arena attracts nearly 3 million fans annually. These visitors boost the district's economy by staying in our hotels, dining in our restaurants, and shopping in our stores. In 2011, Ted Leonsis took over operations, and since then, Miami Mental has invested over $200 million to maintain and improve the event day experience for our fans and to ensure the arena remains a driving force in downtown. In years since, we have brought 2 championships to the district, the Capitals in 2018 with the Stanley Cup and the Mystics in 2019 with the WNBA Finals Championship. These monumental moments, coupled with our friends at the Nationals who won the 2019 World Series and the Washington Spirit who won the NWSL Championship in 2021 and DC United's mini championships, has cemented the District of Columbia as a district of champions. One of the unique qualities about Miami Mental Sports is that we own our own regional sports network, Miami Mental Sports Network. Miami Mental Sports Network grew out of MSC's acquisition of NBC Sports Washington that closed in September of 2022. Nevertheless, our live sports remains our biggest viewership driver for the network. Last season, the Capitals edged out ESPN and surpassed the viewership for Fox Sports 1 and TNT in the same time slot. The Wizards outperformed Fox Sports 1, ESPN 2, and TNT. However, the largest growth has been powered by the Mystics, which saw a 136% higher viewership in 2024. Moreover, our network covers the Washington Spirit, local HBCUs such as Howard University and Bowie State, as well as local high school sports. At MSC, we continue to invest and innovate consistently to raise the game to deliver extraordinary experiences that will inspire and unite our community, our fans, and our people, both on the court and off the court. One of those initiatives is our District Dribble, which is part of the company's larger District of Play effort. At this very moment, Ted Leonsis, along with Mayor Bowser, Chancellor Farabee, and Councilmember Zachary Parker, are delivering the first 300 NBA regulation-sized basketballs to students at Brown Education Campus in Ward 5. Our initiative will provide DCPS elementary school students with the NBA basketball over the next 3 weeks. In conclusion, on behalf of Ted Leonsis, our employees, athletes, and partners, we appreciate and thank you, Chairman McDuffie, for your leadership and service to the District of Columbia. We are honored to stand as partners with Mayor Bowser and her team and the Council of the District of Columbia. Together, we can forge a legacy that strengthens our community and cements the District of Columbia as a global leader in sports entertainment. I also want to acknowledge Angie Gates, my friend and fellow native New Orleanian, for all the partnership and great friendship we have as we work with Events DC. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have or the committee may have.
Thank you for your testimony. I want to thank each of the witnesses for your testimony this morning. I really appreciate it. And I want to start my round of questions with really, I think, something that Jason hit on during your testimony when you talked about growth potential in sports. And I want to tie it into economic impact. I remember what Buzzard Point was like before Audi Field was constructed. I have friends who I went to high school with who lived in the Southwest Quadrant, but it wasn't nearly as much economic activity happening related to sports until that stadium was built, and it really spurred, I think, broader activity in and around the field. And so I want to give you an opportunity to talk about both the economic impact of what you all are doing, DC United, Audi Field, in that area, what it means for the District of Columbia, and also just what the growth potential you see in sports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, in 2017, a lot of the discussion was around, there was development happening next to Nats Park, if I remember well, on the east side of South Capitol Street. And the west side of South Capitol Street, where Buzzard Point was really struggling for economic development. And we engaged in a partnership, which I'm grateful for, with Audi. And I took the Audi CEO, global CEO, and CMO over to see the site. And there was a scrapyard there. And he said, "You're going to build a stadium here?" And there was a lot of concern about what's going to happen here because there really was no economic activity. There was also the old Coast Guard building, which had been shut down. And when Audi Field got built, we've seen such tremendous growth in the past 7 or 8 years. Audi opened in 2018. In that time period, the number of apartments that have come online, the retail, the restaurants that are already starting to develop, you see that growth. And I think there's a long way to go for Buzzard Point. And part of the economic development vision is linking Buzzard Point from a pedestrian standpoint with the Navy Yard and the wharf. So there's a walking pedestrian ability to enjoy the waterfront, to connect those neighborhoods. And I think Buzzard Point is still in its infancy in doing that. But the kind of events we've hosted the All-Star Game for Major League Soccer, where we played Arsenal. We've hosted the Truth and Service Classic, which is a fantastic event with Howard University. That's been a wonderful partnership. We've really tried to make Audi Field a community venue and an economic engine for Buzzard Point and the entire district. And we're ready to take the next step in doing that. There's a lot more we can do. We've got ambitious plans for doing that. But it all revolves around the economic engine and also the community building that comes from that. You know, watching different generations of families enjoy the events together and building lifelong memories, those are things that are invaluable as part of this process. So we're very cognizant of that and really appreciate your support and your leadership in looking at those opportunities with us.
Thank you for that. Mark, I really appreciated your testimony, and I really enjoyed watching you play. I'm old enough to remember watching your dad play. But I think, you know, as I listen to your testimony, think about the District of Columbia being the sports capital of the United States, I think it's also important for young folks to understand the opportunity that exists in the business of sports as an industry beyond playing, right? You are fortunate to be as good as you are, have that pedigree, play in college at an institution like Alabama, play professionally. Every kid doesn't get that chance, right? What perhaps do you tell a kid about the opportunities that exist in the sports economy if they aren't as good as you were, and probably still are if you have to get out there?
I appreciate that, but the opportunities are endless if you want to be involved in sports. It doesn't if you're not fortunate enough to, you know, make it on the field to that next level. There's so many jobs surrounding sports that there's marketing, there's administration in the front office, there's trainers, there's so many avenues to still be involved in sports. So if your passion is sports, if your passion is to be around the game of sports because it impacted you so well, you can still do that in an effective manner. You just have to find what you're passionate about in that area. Go to school, study business, study athletic training, study whatever your heart desires, you know, because there is plenty of jobs and opportunities in the sporting world. So just kind of find your passion. I would tell them, find your passion, find what drives you, find what you want to be a part of. And just because you're not an athlete on the field doesn't mean you can't be effective and making a difference in the sporting community.
Appreciate that. I know, Chris, hearing the testimony talking about rugby being the second most popular sport internationally after soccer might be news to some folks. I've had a conversation with you and others in the past. I've talked to Angie Gates about some of the things that they're doing, but we don't see as much rugby in the District of Columbia as perhaps we will in the near future. A dear friend of mine who I went to elementary and high school with for a couple of years, played rugby in high school and still connected to rugby. I believe you know Marcus Woods. But talk to us about the impact that rugby could have and the potential for rugby to really touch more lives of youth across the District of Columbia and be a greater part of our local sports economy.
Right. So rugby is a sport that is growing in popularity, in part because it is a combination of very intense athleticism and activity with a set of values like mutual respect and inclusion that really translate into a very gentlemanly or gentlewomanly interpretation of a very chaotic game. So that culture of rugby and the personality around it translates to it being a very suitable sport for youth development. and a very exciting sport to watch at the professional level. We have been honored to start hosting the highest level rugby here in Washington, D.C. over the last couple of years. In partnership with Events DC and the Washington Commanders, we hosted in 2021 a game between the USA and the legendary New Zealand All Blacks that drew 45,000 people from across the country and indeed even around the world to watch that one game. And we think it was on the heels of that game that World Rugby decided to award the 2031 World Cup to the United States because it was such a positive experience hosting the game here in Washington, D.C. This past summer, we hosted another international between USA and Scotland at Audi Field, which I think a number of people in the room here were able to enjoy along with us. It was a tremendously successful game, almost a sellout at Audi Field. And as Angie Gates mentioned in her testimony, it has just been announced Tuesday here in D.C. That USA Rugby will be hosting more games on U.S. soil this summer than ever in its history. And the crowning moment of that series is going to be a doubleheader here in D.C. at Audi Field, where DC United owns and operates their organization, between a doubleheader of men's and women's. So the men, USA men, are going to play England, so one of the top tier countries in the world. And the women are going to, USA women will play Fiji in a doubleheader in the same day. So we are growing the visibility of the sport through those kinds of events, making sure they are accessible to people from throughout the district, as well as attracting fans from all over the world. And I think, Chairman McDuffie, that awareness translates to interest and getting value out of it. I think all of those opportunities in the business of sport, as well as in the entertainment and athletic aspects of sport, are available through rugby in a very healthy, safe culture. And we are looking forward to continuing to promote that within the district as much as we possibly can.
And we'll have some testimony later on in the day from, I think, Kenny Owens with District of Columbia State Athletic Association. But I'm curious about how many teams in the district, high school, middle school, actually offer rugby as a sport. I'm not putting you on the spot to answer that question, but I am curious because I didn't get exposed to it as a kid, but I know more kids are in the District of Columbia as a result. I think it's some of the things that you all are doing specifically, and just the popularity of the sport picking up. And so I don't know if you have a response to that, but
I do. I mean, a couple thoughts there. The first is there actually is some very active hubs of rugby excellence at the school level. Gonzaga College High School, for example, right here in the district, is a perennial national championship contender in rugby. They have a tremendous rugby program over there, fielding a number of teams each week. We are working to create more prevalence of rugby in the public schools in D.C. And in fact, there is an organized grassroots group, Washington Youth Rugby, which we support through coaching and financing, that is doing much of that outreach and working to grow right now.
okay. Well, I'd love to learn more about what you're doing. I already know some of what Washington Youth Rugby is doing, but to help expand on that, just so more people know about what's happening. So I really appreciate that. I want to turn to Crispus just to get a quick question in before I turn to Councilmember Felder. 136% viewership in 2024 is what,
Yes, sir.
what I heard?
That's correct. Yes.
With is it Mystics?
That's correct.
I think I was in a lot of those games in person because of just the great play that you see on the court in the WNBA, but really wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about what you all are doing today. I know we pulled you away from a huge event that Monumental is doing over at one of my favorite schools, Brown Education Campus in Ward 5, not too far from Ward 7, right across Benning Road. But talk about what you all are doing today.
Sure, sir. And I thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chairman. So part of our District of Play initiative, we have something as a subset of it called District Dribble, where we're going to give out 29,000 NBA regulation basketballs to every DCPS elementary school students. I remember the last time I was here, you asked me about that. And so I have that answer, NBA size regulation. And we're delivering it to at least 5 schools today. So we have an actual event at Brown Education Campus where the mayor is going to speak. chancellor, as well as the council member from that warrior successor, Zachary Parker. And we're going to have G Wiz there, our mascot, also a press conference, and they're actually going to deliver the basketballs, like hand deliver them to the kids. Just yesterday at the arena, the basketballs, when they were delivered to us, they were not inflated. And so we had an all-hands-on-deck volunteer efforts from various universities in the city. Those involved in sports came to Capitol Arena, and from about 9 a.m. to about 4 p.m., we inflated 29,000 basketballs yesterday at the arena. It was a sight to see.
So I appreciate that. I'm going to turn to Councilmember Felder before round.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, I'll start with you. If I'm a professional sports team and I'm considering coming to the district, in your opinion, can you speak to the benefits of being housed in the district and the role that sports teams play in our local economy?
Sure, and thank you for the question. Yeah, I think there's some real benefits that the district has for a professional sports team, and we're in the process of looking at bringing another professional sports team to the district. And one of the biggest assets we have is a council and a mayor's office, an executive office that's deeply committed to sport, deeply committed to it on the youth level and also on the professional level as a real partner. I think Events DC is a tremendous asset. I know it is to a professional sports team that might relocate into the district. That kind of support on the public and private partnership level is really critical when you're thinking about having a sports team in a location. I also think the population in and around the district, is also such a dynamic population. It's diverse, it's young, it's engaged, it's sports heavily focused, and so I think that brings a real advantage to Washington, D.C. The fan base is demonstrated that it's passionate for all different sports, particularly for sports that have an international outreach, because the diversity of our population is really key. You know, I think about the kind of people that relocate to the district, the people who live and work here, what they want out of their lives. We've got young families, we've got older people, we've got such an interesting mix, and they care deeply about sport and deeply about community. And there is a sense that in Washington, D.C., there's a core group of people that are here, but there are a lot of people moving in and out. And sports brings both of those groups together over generations, and also people who enter the district and have their first job here and are making friends and building relationships. I think you see that in the youth sports, but also groups like Volo that are bringing adult sports leagues together. We've seen such growth in that, particularly after COVID, of people wanting to come together, wanting to compete, wanting to do something healthy with their lifestyle, and to play. And at Audi Field, what I've learned is the different kinds of sports that are so interesting, whether it's rugby, where we're getting tremendous interest. Certainly soccer is why we initially built Audi Field. American football. So many different sports that people want to play and participate in and want the opportunity to do at a stadium and a venue like Audi Field. So I think the district is especially well-positioned to attract investment in professional sports and sports franchises.
I appreciate that. Just a follow-up question, since you were there at Audi Field from the beginning, how has, during the initial construction to now, have neighbors been more embracive of the team's plan there? Have their posture changed? Have they always been supportive? If you can speak to that, how have you maintained engagement with stakeholders?
The community initially, I think, was a little bit nervous. What does this mean for us? What's this going to mean for noise and construction and debris and just crowd? I would say we've spent a tremendous amount of time with the neighbors and the community. And I would say the overwhelming majority of them are thrilled that we're there. And you've seen that in the opportunities for jobs. You've seen that in the opportunities to play sport, for community building. You know, we hosted a lot of high school graduations at Audi Field from local schools, and those were fantastic events. We've hosted a lot of community-oriented events as well. And you see that in sort of what's happening in the community, because it's changing in terms of more residents moving in, more residents wanting to live near Audi Field because of the events that are going on there and the programming. Restaurants are popping up. that weren't there before. And, you know, it looks as though Buzzard Point is headed towards being the most densely populated area in Washington, D.C. In the next several years. And that's a testament to Audi Field coming there and engaging the community. So I think the community, certainly we find folks that have challenges or questions, and we spend a lot of time in the community trying to uplift the community and make people happy who are there and engage them in using Audi Field as a community venue.
I appreciate you, Jason. Mr. Ingram, first of all, I appreciate you being in here before us. As a former athlete myself in college, I respect the dedication and commitment that you put into your craft. Maybe we can race in the 60. Could you speak to the role that sports has played in your life, specifically as a young person, not in high school, but more so that middle age between 9 to 13?
I think it was integral into developing me into, you know, learning how to overcome adversity, learning how to put in hard work, learning that it's not always, you could put in the work. It doesn't always mean you're going to be successful, but if you don't put in the work, you definitely won't be successful. So that hard work, that mindset, that commitment, learning how to communicate and talk to other people of different races, of different backgrounds, of different beliefs, learn how to come together, put all those differences aside to focus on one common goal. And I think what I learned most around that time was it's not always sunshine or rainbows. Success isn't a straight line. You can't get on the elevator and go to floor 20. You got to take the stairs. You got to put the work in. You got to be hard work, dedication, commitment, sacrifice. There's no secret recipe into, you know, being successful. It's just daily commitment of your goals. What are you doing to be better today? What are you doing to achieve your goals today? And I think that foundation from coaching, from parents, from other teammates, I feel like that helped develop my mind and kind of mold my mind into being who I am today.
I appreciate that. And just a follow-up question. We can have some college students that's going to testify later. If there's any athlete that's at a point in their profession or inspiring to be in the NBA, NFL, et cetera, and they're about to quit, what message would you get them?
Don't quit, because the breakthrough could be tomorrow. The breakthrough is right around the corner. When you're feeling resistance, when you're feeling pressure, and there's going to be valleys. There's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be valleys, and you got to find a way to overcome that adversity. If you overcome that adversity and you push through and you get through it on the other side, not only will you be possibly in the NBA or NFL, but you'll be a better person for it. You'll be a better man. You'll be a better woman from it. So when you do go to corporate America, when you do go to another job, and there's trials and there's tribulations and there's adversity, you'll know that, hey, it might be tough now, but if I continue to push, if I continue to grind, if I get through it, if I come out on the other side, I'll be better for it. So I'll tell them never to quit, always push through the tough times.
One final question. You mentioned that you're a sports anchor. How has the values and principles you learned on the field translated out of the field?
I was fortunate to have the opportunity to either continue to play year 13, or I had an offer to go be a college football analyst at Fox Sports, and I chose to go be a college football analyst, and I feel like the hard work, the commitment, the dedication, the desire to be the best, I feel like those transitioned immediately. The preparation that you need to have to, you know, prepare for an NFL game, for a college football game, that's the same routine that I took to preparing to be the best analyst I could be. And obviously just treating people the right way, respecting people, and knowing how to be a team player. I think that translated right over to my new profession as well. And that's something I take pride in. That's something that the feedback that I'm getting from some of my coworkers, that I'm a great team player, that I work my hardest, that I want to be the best. And I'm always willing to learn. I don't know it all the time. I'm always willing to learn and take advice. And those are all the things that I took to my next profession.
I appreciate that. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Yes, sir. And Crispus, you mentioned there's been a 130% viewership with Mystic Mystics games? And correct me on those numbers.
136% increase.
Okay.
Yes.
From working for Monumental Sports, you have the Capital One Arena compared to the arena on St. Elizabeth campus. From your perspective, have you seen an increase in young folks attending the games, specifically at the arena at the St. Elizabeth campus?
No, absolutely. I think Care First Arena, I think the capacity is 3,800, and we're selling out every single game. We have an agreement with the mayor's office where we can move, I think, about 4 games to Capital One Arena, which is what we did last Mystics season. And just to give you a stat with that, in July when the Mystics played the Indiana Fever, that was a sold-out game at Capital One Arena. We were at capacity. That was the highest attended WNBA game in history. And so we've seen not only an uptick in viewership of watching the game, but we've seen an uptick in actually people attending the game. Women's sports has exploded, and we're on the front and cutting edge of that.
Well, thank you all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember Felder. I really appreciate this panel's time, their testimony, and support of this legislation. Thank you. Excited about this next panel. Get to hear from my friend and D.C. native Kenny Blakeney, who's the men's head basketball coach at my alma mater, Howard University, as well as Blake Harper, student athlete, Howard University. If you don't know, get to know the name Blake Harper. Aaron Foreman, founder, co-owner, DC Breeze, and Chris Bryant, partner, Scholar Athletes Sports Network. We're going to give Chris Bryant a moment to join before we get started. Okay, I really appreciate you all being here this morning. I'm excited about hearing this testimony and that you all made time to join us right down here at the Wilson Building. So we're going to turn first to Close Blakeney.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Chairman McDuffie, esteemed members of council, community leaders, and fellow Washingtonians. My name is Kenny Blakeney, and I'm honored to stand before you, not just the head coach of Howard University men's basketball, but as a proud native son of Washington, D.C. The first house I came home to was in Ward 1. Raised in my family's home in Ward 4, and now live on Capitol Hill in Ward 6. Sports is a defining force in my life, shaping my character, discipline, and dreams. From playing at No. 8 Boys and Girls Club to battling on the courts of D.C. Parks and Rec, where sports built my foundation, now leading Howard basketball to 2 of the last 3 NCAA tournaments. I see firsthand the power of sports to inspire, uplift, and unite communities. My family's love of DC sports runs deep. A relative had season tickets to the Washington football team at RFK Stadium, and I witnessed the city come alive with each Super Bowl victory. I was there when Major League Baseball returned, holding on to the commemorative coin from the Nationals' first ever game at RFK. These moments weren't just about wins and losses. They were about civic pride, identity, and the unbreakable spirit of our city. The passion is why I stand here today, to make a case for why DC should be recognized as the sports capital of the world. We have world-class venues and infrastructure. DC sports infrastructure rivals any city in the world. Our iconic venues are more than just stadiums. They are landmarks of history and culture. Capital One Arena, home of the Wizards and Capitals, and a stage for NCAA tournaments, boxing, and world-class events. Audi Field, a hub of sports excellence, housing DC United and my favorite team, as I'm a season ticket holder for the Washington Spirits. Nationals Park, a cathedral of baseball where the Nats made history with their World Season Championship. Entertainment and Sports Arena, home of the WNBA champions, Mystics, and the breeding ground for local talent through the Go-Go. One of my favorites, Burr Gymnasium on the campus of Howard University, a historic venue showcasing top college basketball talent like DC's own Blake Harper, who was named the National HBCU College Player of the Year. These venues are more than just playing fields. They're proving grounds for champions and gathering places for fan base that defines the soul of our city. Championship pedigree and legendary athletes. DC is a city of winners. Our teams have delivered championships and inspired generations. Beyond our teams, we've produced icons who have changed their sports like Coach John Thompson, Elgin Baylor, Vernon Davis, and countless others. The DC area has long been a powerhouse for elite talent, and that pipeline continues. A passionate fan base and thriving sports culture. DC isn't just a great sports city, it's a true sports town, fueled by one of the most knowledgeable and passionate fan bases in the world. You feel it when you're at Capital One Arena and it shakes during Wizards and Caps playoff games. You see it in the Sea of Reds at Nat Stadium. You hear it loud chants at Audi Field when the Spirit supporters bring unmatched energy. But DC sports culture just isn't about professional teams. It's about community. Our high school basketball scene is second to none, with legendary programs like Gonzaga, Archbishop Curl, and Sidwell Friends shaping past and future pros. The Goodman League has become a proving ground for elite talent, and the Turkey Bowl on Thanksgiving bringing generations together. Sports just aren't a pastime in DC. They're woven into our city's DNA. Why DC deserves the title Sports Capital of the World. DC is more than politics. It's more than monuments and museums. It's a city of fighters, competitors, and champions. A city where young athletes like me, growing up dreaming big, and made those dreams a reality. Recognizing Washington, D.C. as the sports capital of the world isn't just about a title. It's about acknowledging a legacy, a passion, and a future. It's about investing in the next generation of athletes, teams, and communities. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'm honored to represent this great city and to be a part of its incredible sports legacy. There are so many people like me in the DC that feel this way. I am sports, and DC made me. Make DC the sports capital of the world. Thank you.
And thank you for that testimony. I really appreciate it. MEAC Rookie of the Year and Player of the Year. And also, I just heard Coach say National HBCU College Player of the Year, Blake Harper. Appreciate you being here. Look forward to hearing your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you. First off, I want to thank the DC City Council and the Committee on Business and Economic Development for having me today at this hearing. I want to give a special thank you to the committee chair and councilman at large, Kenyan McDuffie, a fellow Howard Bison, for his continual support of our program and myself. My name is Blake Harper, and I'm a lifelong resident of Ward 4 in DC and a freshman basketball player at Howard University. It is a true honor to be testifying before you in the Wilson Building, a place that holds a special meaning for my family and I. My late mother, Linda Harley Harper, who was formerly the first gun violence prevention director for the district under Mayor Bowser before her passing, she came into this building every day trying to make DC a safer city for all of its residents. Being able to testify and honor her memory in a place where she affected so much change and an overwhelming feeling of gratitude, I can feel her presence alongside me today. The purpose of this hearing is to discuss the declaration by Councilman McDuffie naming DC the sports capital of the world. Being born in DC as the son of a basketball coach has allowed me tremendous opportunities to elevate my game. As a kid, every summer, I attended the Georgetown basketball camps, hosted by my dad's lifelong friend, John Thompson III, and played for the premier AAU program in the area with Team Takeover. However, when I really knew that DC basketball was different was when I enrolled in Gonzaga College High School. The level of competition playing in the Washington Catholic Athletic Conference shaped me to the player that I've become today. From classic rivalries like St. John's to historic matchups with DeMatha Catholic, the hostile and electric environments through the conference created some of my most memorable experiences of my life. The joy I got from playing basketball in my hometown led me to make the best decision of my life in October of 2023 when I committed to Howard University. Upon arriving at Howard, I was 6'5" and 232 pounds and could not pass our vaunted Talladega conditioning test. I was on the sidelines for the first 2 months of summer before passing the test and being able to accompany the team on a foreign tour to Brazil, which launched a historic freshman campaign. This past season at Howard was something I could never imagine in my wildest dreams. I became one of 2 freshmen in the country to average at least 19 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. I became the first freshman in the 54-year history of the MEAC Conference to win both Rookie of the Year and Player of the Year in the same year. I was recently on the cover of Sports Illustrated and featured in the Washington Post, and I accomplished all of this with the Dream Factory on the campus of the nation's preeminent HBCU, where everything is possible for our student body. This season has been amazing on so many levels, but the best part is sharing the success with the people that raised me in my city. My games are 15 minutes from my childhood home. The player in person I have become would not have been possible without all those that have shaped me along this journey in the sports capital of the world. There's nothing truly like putting on for my community and my community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much for your testimony. It really means a lot to have that. I got a couple of questions for y'all. We're going to hear first from Aaron Foreman, and then be followed by Chris Bryant. Mr. Foreman, thanks for being here.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Council. Thank you all for allowing me to attend here today. I'm here in support of the Bill 26119. My name is Aaron Foreman. I'm the founder and co-owner of the DC Breeze. We are a professional ultimate Frisbee team here based out of DC. We founded the team. I founded the team in 2013. I'm a football guy, as you could probably tell by my size. I'm a football guy. Most of my friends asked me at the time, they said, you know, what do you know about ultimate Frisbee? But I'm also a retired U.S. Army veteran as well, having deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan as well, where I actually got introduced to the sport. What drew me to it was the passion. What drew it to me was the international level of competition that existed in the sport. And most people have seen ultimate Frisbee play, but they hadn't seen it play with the professionalism and the passion that I saw when I founded the team in 2013. With that said, we've been working very closely with the city of DC, with DPR, with the Office of Cable Television. Also in 2021, we held our actual championship game, championship weekend at Audi Field, in which we worked with Events DC. We currently house all of our home games at Catholic University, and we intend on staying in DC. My business partner and co-owner, Ty Simpson, we're both native Washingtonians. I graduated from Ballou Senior High School. He also graduated from DC Public Schools as well, and so DC is ingrained in what we do, and we intend on staying in the city. What we've done and what we've looked to do is continue to implement the sport into the public school system. Right now, currently, there are 2 high schools in the city that actually have ultimate Frisbee teams. That's School Without Walls and Wilson Senior High School, formerly known as Wilson Senior High School, now Jackson Reed. And so we've been privileged and honored to be be the tip of the spear, so to speak, as really launching this sport in this area. We're also privileged to be the only two minority owners in the league, African American owners, me and Mr. Simpson as well. So this morning I am here just like the Old Glory organization was here to share the expansion of the sport. At an international level, it's played in over 32 countries. And right now we are petitioning and been working hard with the U.S. Olympic Committee to make this an Olympic sport in 2032. We missed the deadline slightly to get in the Summer Olympics in 2028. One of our bigger goals in having it in D.C. is to get more of our minority community involved. The beauty of the sport is the fact that there are so many elements of other sports in the sport of ultimate, and that's what also attracted me to it, because if you ever get a chance to watch it, you'll see elements of football, basketball, baseball, soccer included in the sport. And so we're here today because we want to definitely back the bill, back D.C. being the and no pun intended, but the ultimate sports city in the nation. And we're here today, and we're thankful for the opportunity that we have. We recently, as I close, we recently had an opportunity to share the sport with over 40 PE teachers at H.D. Woodson High School, where we introduced the sport to them. Many of them familiar with the sport, but, we're ready to, definitely expand this into their PE curriculum. So we're doing boots on the ground work to make sure that not only we stay in D.C., but that more of our minority community will become involved in a sport that is economically feasible for most. All you need is a disc and a place to play. You're probably familiar with some other elements of a disc sport. If you've ever heard of disc golf, that's an element of it. You've probably seen some of the golf courses that are also around the city near the fields at RFK. So I just want to thank you for having us here today, and like others, I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Appreciate it. Glad you could make it today for the testimony. Chris Bryant, good to see you. Look forward to your testimony. Thanks.
Awesome. Good morning, Chair McDuffie, esteemed council members, and community leaders. My name is Chris Bryant, and I am honored to stand before you today as a representative of the Scholar Athlete Sports Network, a platform dedicated to covering and amplifying the voices of high school athletes across Washington, D.C. At SASN, we have had the privilege of witnessing firsthand the vibrancy and the depth of D.C.'s sports culture. Through our coverage of high school sports, we have seen the passion of student athletes, the dedication of coaches, and the unwavering support of families and communities. From Friday night football games at Easton High School to thrilling basketball rivalries at Jackson Reed, Dunbar, and Gonzaga. We also had the privilege to cover some Blake stuff. Okay. Some of the city's most intense rivalries, such as Roosevelt and Coolidge, if you're from Uptown, Anacostia versus Ballou, if you're from South Side, showcase the rich sports traditions embedded in our communities. DC also hosts marquee championship events, including City Football Championship, like the Turkey Bowl, and basketball championships held at Georgetown University, as well as George Washington University. And these bring together thousands of fans and showcase top-tier talent in D.C. This is why we wholeheartedly support the official sports capital of the United States Designation Act of 2025. This important legislation will solidify Washington, D.C.'s status as a premier destination for sports events, teams, and activities, not just for professional and college levels, but for student athletes who represent the next generation of talent. By recognizing D.C. as the nation's sports capital, we open the doors to expand opportunities for youth engagement, job creation, and economic investment in our communities. Washington, D.C. has already proven itself as a sports hub. We host world-class events like the City Open, the Marine Corps Marathon, and championship-winning teams across multiple leagues. But what makes this city truly special is its commitment to grassroots sports, to student athletes, and to making sure every aspiring athlete has the resources and visibility they need to succeed. SASN's work in covering high school sports has given us a unique perspective on why DC deserves this designation. It is a place where sports are more than just a game. They are a pathway to opportunity and a catalyst for community pride. Additionally, our Sports Broadcast Academy is playing a crucial role in shaping the next generation of sports media professionals. We are training young students in the art of sports broadcasting, production, and storytelling, equipping them with the skills to document and elevate the rich sports culture of Washington, D.C. By fostering the future of sports journalism and media production, we ensure that the legacy of D.C. sports is not only played, but also told, shared, and celebrated for generations to come. This investment in youth broadcasting strengthens the very foundation of this act by creating a sustainable pipeline of media professionals who will showcase D.C. as a nation's sports capital. To further highlight the reach of impact of SASN, our social media presence has grown to over 100,000 followers and amassed more than 2 million views from viewers across the DMV area. This level of engagement demonstrates the deep passion and the demand for local sports coverage, solidifying DC as a true sports city that captivates fans, players, and communities alike. On behalf of the Scholar Athlete Sports Network and the many athletes, coaches, and families we represent, we urge you to pass this legislation and let us make it official. Washington, D.C. is and always has been the true sports capital of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you each for your testimony today. Just a couple of questions, and I'll start with Coach Blakeney. You've played at an elite level, the sport of basketball. You're now coaching at Howard University. Where did it all start for you? And at what point did you understand the potential to have a career like you're having in basketball?
Chairman McDuffie, thank you for the question. It all started for me at number 8 Boys Club and Rudolph Elementary Rec Center. Without those outlets, during the time that I grew up, there are different avenues and different lanes that I could have gone down. But DC Parks and Rec and the Boys Club gave me an outlet that I can go and express myself, grow, and learn from some of the best coaches I've ever had, hands down. Playing for the coaches that I did taught me a foundation for sports. They gave me fundamentals. They taught me how to be a leader. They taught me how to be on a team. They taught me how to work with groups of people, how to communicate. And none of this would have happened without those coaches at Rudolph Rec, Remote Junior High Rec, and number 8 Boys and Girls Club.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. What's the Dream Factory?
So the Dream Factory is the moniker for our basketball program, but also for, I think, Howard University. When I think about Howard University, there's not one thing that hasn't been uncovered that our alums and students haven't achieved at that university. We have people that have been the first Black Supreme Court Justice, the first U.S. Ambassador, the first Black woman Vice President. I can go down the list of firsts that Howard alums have touched. And when you look at the overall scope of what our alums have done in this world, we have some of the most important alums in the history of this country. What would Howard be? What would our world be without Howard? And I think that's really important. So when you think about all the people that have come to Howard who have been dreamers, why not have that same ambition and goal for our basketball program?
I appreciate that. Blake Harper, an amazing freshman year. I've watched you play from the outside for a little while now, having played at Gonzaga. But this year was like really a breakout year for you. It really means a lot to have you testify. You reference your mom in your testimony. Linda Harley Harper was an amazing public servant who I got to know really well and worked with in multiple capacities that she worked for the District of Columbia government. and where there's no greater public servant, no more dedicated person to really trying to end gun violence in the District of Columbia, and I wanted to just mention that to you. She meant so much to a lot of people, and I know you know that, but I wanted to make sure that I put that on the record. She meant a lot to me and to this city, so I really appreciate you being here in this capacity. What is the sport of basketball meant for you, and at what point did you understand what your full potential could be? I mean, this is a breakout year. I don't know if a lot of folks expected you to have this year. I don't know if you expected to have this year. Maybe Coach knew, something that a lot of folks didn't know. But just talk about what the experience has been for you.
Yeah, so first off, thank you. I appreciate it. This year has been a life-changing year, and like my coach KB said, like, just a dream factory. I came here I was really just expecting, I'm just lucky to play D1 basketball, and because he was the first coach to ever believe in me. Really just coming to Howard, knowing I was going to be playing in front of my pops, doing the city that my mom really loved deep down, and it really didn't feel good if I went anywhere else. And this place gave me an opportunity that I never had ever. Coming out of high school, and I had no scholarship offers. Really just diving into who I was as a person. I had to find out who I was and what role I could play on the team. And luckily, I trusted myself and I trusted my work. And I feel like that's what the public is seeing now, all those dark days and dark nights. But also just the city just being there for me and literally playing in my playground. Just growing up, uptown, Ward 4 kid, and just playing with some people who also who are from D.C., played at Gonzaga. People on the coaching staff from Gonzaga, it's just different. It's a whole different, family vibe. And that's just something I really appreciate. It's comfortable to be able to, play in my city and play the city that raised me.
Thank you for that. And love your mom, but also big fan of Coach Snoop, your dad. So I want to make sure that I put that on the record well. He's done an amazing job as well. So Ultimate Frisbee. Again, you mentioned rugby just as a reference because not as many people are familiar with some of the other sports that are here in the District of Columbia. Ultimate Frisbee is one of those sports. DC Breeze is one of those teams. What more should the city be thinking about in terms of how we could support, how more youth can get involved in the sport of Ultimate Frisbee?
Thank you for that question. As I stated earlier, I think for all sports that have been represented in here, I think we would all agree that the youth is our lifeblood. There's no basketball, there's no football without a youth level. Our goal and the way that the city could help us is by continuing to allow it to just be integrated and introduced at the middle school and the high school level. We have a couple of players that actually play football that have transitioned into playing Ultimate Frisbee now. And from a city perspective, just awareness, marketing, just allowing a disc to end up on the gym floor of one of our middle schools or high schools, so that our players who do a great job as ambassadors of introducing the sport and continuing to carry on the growth of it as we move along. So that would be the greatest way that the city could definitely help us.
Appreciate that. I was just thinking about watching and being a fan. I played sports growing up, Boys and Girls Club. You mentioned AAU, Kingman Pythons. I played PAL, Police Athletic League. There were so many different opportunities to play. We've got some really, really high-quality Division I programs in the District of Columbia. Obviously, Howard is one of those programs. I've been thinking about just us being this world-class city, being this sports capital of the United States, and whether we should think about organizing more events, working with Angie Gates and her team. And there's an event in Philadelphia. It's Philadelphia's Big Five, where local teams play each other each season. I don't know if there's ever been any conversations about that with you, Coach Blakely, or anybody else, or how difficult it would be to pull something like that off, but I'm throwing it out there.
Thank you, Chairman McDuffie. That would be a godsend.
Okay.
We would absolutely, speaking for Howard University, love to be a part of something like that. It's very challenging in this landscape of basketball to schedule basketball games. There's so much riding on winning and losing. And some basketball programs enjoy playing teams like Howard. Some basketball programs don't enjoy playing teams like Howard. So if there's a way that we can collectively bring every DC school together for an opportunity to have a weekend like that, that would be so exciting, I think, not only for the universities, the alums, but the community and the city of Washington, D.C.
Appreciate that. And I'm sure Angie Gates has somebody who's listening in to what was just mentioned in that testimony. I appreciate that, Coach. Chris Bryant, you were here earlier, I believe, when I was chatting with Angie Gates from Events DC. It came up during the first panel with Mark Ingram, Jason Levian, and others. But I want to give you the opportunity to talk about your Sports Broadcast Academy, because I think more kids should be exposed to the business of sports, all the opportunities within the industry beyond playing. I encourage kids to play. I know what it did for me. A lot of the skills and qualities that I have today were instilled in me early on, not just in my household with my mom and dad, but from a lot of the coaches that I had playing football and basketball growing up in the District of Columbia. Some kids don't understand all the other opportunities. If you're not good at basketball, you're not good at football, you're not good at sports, but you are passionate about sports and want to be involved, one of the ways that people can be involved is through media and broadcast. So talk about what you're doing with the Academy.
Sure. Well, of course, we started covering high school sports, and we were just mainly focused on the coverage side. But what eventually kind of organically happened was that we had young people that, while we're filming, because that's our main business, video production. And, hey, how do you shoot like that? Or can I see that camera? So I would just give the kids the camera, and they would just start shooting. So I would show them what to do and all these type of things. And you just see like this spark in their eyes, And before you know it, they tell their friends, and, we have a crew of kids, And what's happened from that, we started to kind of develop a program, which is the Sports Broadcast Academy, where we actually take on high school students as well as college students, and as well as, people who always wanted to get into sports broadcasting, young adults, people in their early 20s, mid-20s, things like that, and just give them the opportunity, because from a professional standpoint, it's very difficult to get airtime, so to speak, especially when you're just starting out, because a lot of times, you're an intern, so, you're getting coffee or, doing low-level production things that, you don't really get like airtime as far as actual broadcasts, as far as play-by-play calling, actual interviews and things like that until later on in your career. So we're giving our young people this opportunity early on. So by the time they do graduate from high school, they have a portfolio that they then could kind of position for, to get into a sports broadcast program as far as college or university. And then as well, as far as our college students, we give them an opportunity to build their portfolio for employment, okay? And which is very crucial because, like I said, nowadays with the advent of broadcasting being so competitive, and they don't really get the opportunity to get the experience, hands-on experience that they get with us. Yeah. So it's a benefit that we're able to provide these young people with this type of experience.
Appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Ask one more question before I let this panel go. Coach Blakeney, it seems like the model of college athletics is really, and I think rapidly undergone a significant transformation. Since you first took the job in 2019, it seems like it was just yesterday, but it's been since 2019. And in this new landscape of NIL and collectives and transfer portals, how can we as a city help elevate and position the district's college teams for sustained success amid so much change in sports?
It's a wonderful question. I think when you look at the landscape of college athletics, there's not much legislation right now attached to the rules and the regulations of how things move. College athletics right now is in the wild, wild west. And there has to be some type of leadership that steps up and really grab the bull by the horns. It was evolving in this way because the student athlete did not have any voice or any say in the matter with how NCAA thought about them as students and the benefit of their name, image, and likeness. I love the fact that students have an opportunity to get paid. And I love the fact that students can build and grow their brand to monetize it. So with the NIL, I love it. The transfer portal is something else. We had a team several years ago that was the second winningest team in the history of Howard University's men's basketball program. That team today should still be together. And if it was, it would be a top 25 program team in the country. But because of the rules and the regulations and the way that the NCAA has allowed everything to evolve, it doesn't allow programs, especially like our program, an opportunity for sustainability. So the legislative and leadership groups have to come in to provide, I think, direction for universities to be able to have a chance for students and programs to have the same amount of, I think, equality where there can be sustainability. Until that happens, it won't be the type of sustainability that you can see where programs can have runs. But right now, it's going to be programs that are one-year programs, and they have to reset.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, and if you follow sports, you really have to be, I think, attuned almost every single day because there's something new happening. Some kid going to a different school, some decision coming down at some court impacting sports at the collegiate level. But I appreciate those insights for sure. I'm going to turn to Councilmember Felder for a round.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to start off with you, Blake, and congratulations on all your success. Obviously, you have a lot of talent, and it's shown on the court. Could you speak to your preparation, especially being a lifelong athlete? How do you normally prepare going into a game?
Thank you. Really just going in there with the mindset that just being connected and communicating out there on the court with my teammates, it really makes the game a lot easier when, you know, it's five guys that's ready to go and have the same mindset to get the same goal, which is the win. And me personally, I just go into the game really just trying to connect with my teammates and make the game easier on all levels. Really, if it's easier to go against five guys it's harder to go against five guys who, you know, are together and have the most team chemistry rather than a whole team who's trying to do it all by themselves. And I really think my mindset and seeing the whole college basketball landscape for the first year that I've been here has really shown me that the most connected team will win. And I feel like that's how, you know, we prepare at Howard. And, yeah, that's how I feel like, you know, I prepare for games.
And how has sports impacted you in life, especially dealing with challenging times? I know, unfortunately, and you have my condolences, your mother was very active in the District of Columbia, running the One's office. How has sports helped with navigating her passing?
Yeah, really when I was going through that time, that's all I had. Really, basketball was my foundation, my rock that I was able to, you know, fall back on. And I kind of went 10 times harder when that happened. And when I had that whole experience, that whole situation, it kind of made me step back and realize who I looked in the mirror with. I'm trying to find out who I am. And I figured I was going to do this basketball thing, so I'm going to do it 100%. And basketball gives me an outlet to showcase my emotions, my feelings, everything I'm thinking, and everything on the outside of the world. It doesn't even need to come into the basketball. And I feel like, I got that on my mind. I can easily get it off my mind when I go in the gym and I lock into myself and I'm working on myself. And you only know how hard you put work in. And when I go out there on the court, I know how much work I put in. That's why I feel like I've been successful this past year.
I appreciate that, Blake. And then my final question, as a former athlete myself, I'm pretty sure you can attest to this. It's one thing being from D.C., right, when you go to different places and people, every native up here can attest to that too, playing sports. You go to different cities and states, and they say, where you from? And you say you from D.C. And so that's one pride. Could you speak to the pride and joy you feel being from D.C. but playing basketball at the level you playing?
It's everything. D.C. basketball is the best in the country, hands down. And really being able to grow up in D.C. and see the competition level be so high really makes, I'd say now, the level I'm playing at, it's tough, it's aggressive, but really I'm used to it now since I'm being from D.C., being in hostile and electric environments, like I said previously, and really just being able to play here in D.C., see my peoples, my childhood friends come back on spring break, they can come see me play. It's really just a blessing, and I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm proud of you. Definitely keep up the hard work. I'm expecting big things from you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Coach Blakely, you spoke about how much D.C. has impacted your career as a native, and you talked about, and I'm pretty sure you've seen the ups and downs of D.C. sports. Could you speak to the college culture at Howard and like how that impacts your coaching style for your students?
Absolutely, and thank you, Mr. Felder, for the question. For me, being at Howard, it allows me to be authentically me. I was raised with Black coaches in a Black community, in a Black neighborhood. And when I recruit young men, I communicate to them that I coach Black, and we're going to play Black. So it embodies the culture of not only the fibers and the DNA of the city that I grew up in, but it also allows that contribution and collaboration with the university to be as seamless as one with the basketball program, the community, and also the DC community as well.
I appreciate that. And gotcha. And Coach, I appreciate your response. From your opinion, could you speak to you being a native, to the council member's point, how he envisioned the district being the sports capital? Could you speak to how natives have rallied behind Howard over the years or since you've been in the role as a coach to support the efforts of not only the basketball team, the swim team has been doing exceptionally well. The football team is on the come up. I mean, I just think Howard's athletic program as a whole is on the brink to do some amazing things. And you guys were in the tournament last year, or was it the year before? Last March Madness? Yeah. So you guys are doing a lot. Could you speak to how natives are supporting that effort?
Absolutely, and thank you. We've gone to the tournament the last 2 out of the 3 years. And my vision for Howard when I took the job was that it was an undervalued stock. The brand is globally recognized, and you can put that brand beside Harvard, Duke, Michigan, any university in the country, and that brand stands alone. There's no doubt about it. But when you look at the basketball program over the last 40 to 50 years, and you try to kind of dig deep into probably why it had chances to be successful and why it hasn't been successful. It was trying to make a connection with the city here in Washington, D.C. So we went in and intentionally made a fact to try to recruit young men from the D.C. area that, like Blake said, we have the best basketball, hands down, in the country. Best coaches, best high schools, best trainers, best AAU programs. It's second to none. So in understanding that we have that resource here in the city, to utilize it where we can, one, connect our campus university community. Two, we can connect the alums. And three, we can connect the city of DC, which at the point where it all connects, makes the city and makes Howard really ignite. And that was the vision and that was the goal from the start with Howard basketball.
Thank you, Coach, and thank you to everyone who testified. Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Councilmember Felder. Just real quick, Coach, the Howard-Hampton game played at Care First Arena. I don't want to bring back old stuff. I didn't like the outcome. But when I talk about economic impact of sports in the district, we have to be able to talk about that real HU rival. I really think there's only one HU that was consistently delivering. Yeah. Only questions that you're asked. I don't think I asked a question there.
We're glad his mic's off.
Exactly. No, I appreciate that. But no, seriously, I mean, that is there's a big impact. It's not just basketball, football, right? Played at Audi Field, the game played at Care First Arena. I was glued to I couldn't make the game, but I was glued to my television on the edge of my seat. They couldn't stop Blake unless they fouled him, and then he may have missed one free throw, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you were knocking him down. What is that impact like for our teams to be able to play in arenas like Care First Arena or on football fields or soccer fields in the District of Columbia? We used to have some version of that some years ago, but what I'm seeing today really is taking things to another level. I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah, it's a dream. Growing up in the city, when you have the Wizards, you have the Nationals, you have the Mystics, you have DC United, you have the Spirit, you have the Commanders. Seeing those professional players, your heroes, your idols, play on the fields that they play on, and you have an opportunity to play on those same fields, gives you some hope and inspiration that that journey that you're on may not be that far off. And for us, playing in that arena against Hampton that day was one of the most electric environments I've ever been in. When the game started, it was just a energy and a vibe that was in that arena that felt different. And as it progressed, the energy hit a peak where I was like, where are we right now? Because it was that electric, and that feeling was intoxicating. And I think with that being said, it allowed our players to play at a higher level. When the game was over and the result was the result, I knew that that was a big time basketball game that we just had played in. And I think the arena was the perfect venue and atmosphere to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Blake, you mentioned playing in the District of Columbia, growing up and everything. You played AAU. What's in your opinion, what's the best AAU team out there?
Nah, I don't got no best AAU team.
You don't have one? Okay, all right. I'm putting you on the spot. That smile belies that you have an answer floating around your head that you don't want to say. All right. I appreciate that. This is a great panel. Appreciate you guys' insights. Learned a lot from this panel, and I really appreciate you all support of this bill to make the District of Columbia the official sports capital of the United States. Thank you all. We'll call up our next panel. If we could have Amir Lowry, Donald Curtis, Damian Cosby, Tariq Delavalde, and James Koloski. Yeah. I'm asking you guys just to like all get together like family so we can get everybody in. Yeah, there we go. All right, I appreciate it. And it might be easier if I just go from one side to the other. So I'll start my left and your right and say good afternoon to you all. Appreciate you all being here and your patience. I know we've had a number of witnesses this morning, but look forward to hearing the testimony.
Happy to be here. Happy to talk at pretty much the tip-off of the best 4 days in sports. So good morning, Chairman McDuffie and members of the committee. My name is James Koloski, and I'm president at Fight for Children, and I'm honored to testify in support of this bill to designate Washington, D.C. as the nation's sports capital. To me, this is more than a title. It's a strategic investment in our economy, our children, and our communities. The bill lays out 3 essential pillars for D.C.'s growth: enhancing sports venues, attracting major sports events to boost tourism, and expanding youth sports opportunities. While all of these elements are critical to strengthening D.C.'s identity as a premier sports city, I'm here today to focus on the third, because investing in youth sports is the most underutilized strategy we have to empower our children, promote equity, and create lasting community impact. To truly make D.C. the nation's sports capital, we must ensure that all kids, regardless of background, have access to a variety of sports designed to help them grow and thrive, and we've heard a lot of testimony today to support that. D.C. is definitely one of the world's great sports cities, yet I don't think that we have fully leveraged this asset to address one of our biggest challenges: equitable access to quality youth sports programs. As it stands now, access to quality youth sports programs in many cases is not a given. It's a privilege. When sports truly serves all kids, the ripple effects on society are profound, enhancing youth development, public health, safety, and education. Kids who play sports are more likely to stay in school than their non-playing peers. They experience better mental and physical health and are less likely to engage in crime. The challenge is that the privatization of youth sports has created a system of haves and have-nots, where access to resources, facilities, and quality programs is too often determined by income. The impact of this divide is very significant. If a child graduates high school, they are more likely to be employed and contribute to the economy. If they stay active, healthcare costs decrease. And if we prevent even one youth incarceration, we save nearly $200,000 annually. The financial return on a sports investment is undeniable, but beyond the numbers, when we speak of human capital, youth sports literally have the power to rewrite a child's future. By passing this bill, D.C. will strengthen its position as a national sports hub, fuel tourism, and drive economic growth. But just as importantly, it will ensure that youth sports are prioritized as a fundamental part of this vision. At Fight for Children, we lead a coalition of over 50 nonprofits and strategic partners dedicated to reimagining youth sports in D.C. You're going to hear from a couple of our member organizations that are sitting next to me this afternoon. And over our 35-year history, we have invested more than $30 million in grants into the local nonprofit sector. And over the past 5 years, through our coalition of network building with local nonprofits that are providing some of the highest quality youth sports and youth development programs across the city, we have become one of the premier capacity builders, conveners, and advocates for these types of organizations. I welcome any questions on how we can collaborate to turn this bill into a reality. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next.
Hey, Chairman McDuffie, thanks for having me. I don't have a prepared testimony, so I'm just going to go off the cuff a little bit, speak from the heart. It's just a pleasure to be here and, speak in support of this bill. And like James said before me, there's such an important piece of this legislation that addresses equity and access and opportunity for youth sports. So my name is Amir Lowry. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Open Goal Project. We promote equity in youth soccer, and we make sure that kids and families who cannot afford pay-to-play youth soccer programs still have an opportunity to access the tremendous benefits and positive youth development that go along with participating in any sport. So our program is 10 years old now, and we'll serve about 500 kids this year. And we've been able to scale and get to the level that we have today and create the impact that we have due to, people like James and Donald and Fight for Children, people like yourself and DC government, DC government offices like Mayor's Office of Latino Affairs, Office of Deputy Mayor of Education. So we wouldn't be here and making the impact we make without this community of support around us. And I think that, this bill speaks to what's necessary is continuing to amplify that work that we've already begun and this journey that we're on. And I think that this legislation and this bill is a great kind of signpost or marker to continue that. Fight for Children has been great for us just as a coalition of like-minded organizations who can come together and work in a collaborative way towards amplifying all of our efforts and hopefully making a greater impact. So I look forward to seeing how, we can continue working together on those efforts and hopefully more with the council and other city government entities. And then, I just want to speak to a little bit of my story. I grew up here. I attended all DC public schools. I played soccer at Wake Forest University and played professionally. And when I moved back, this issue of equity in youth sports was right in front of me when I was coaching at a pay-to-play club here locally. So that all spurred me to start Open Goal Project and to start our free-to-play programs. And the key thing that I want to highlight is character development through youth sports. We have a tremendous opportunity to affect not only young people's lives, but then build leaders that are going to affect the communities and their peers around them. And I think that, as a key element of the, positive youth development involved with sports, any youth sport, like I said, is what's most transformational, is that character development and that ability for sport to transcend, and become transformational for young people's lives. So I just highlight that, and, looking forward to the progress of this move for DC into becoming the sports capital of the world.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your testimony. Next.
So I'm Donald Curtis. I'm the founder, executive director of Soul Programs. I'm here with Fight for Children. And I thank the council for proposing Bill 26-119. So for me, I'm gonna take a slight bend on this, and I'm gonna speak a lot around youth engagement through sports, but in having a title as the world capital of sports, it provides us an opportunity to engage more young people through the use and through the ability to attract more businesses, more larger scale sports events to the city. And in doing so, there's this engagement that happens when we can encourage our young people to actually work with these organizations in the development of some of these programs. Through tourism, through event planning, through the construction of facility, through the movement of people, through the development of communities, through the empowerment of people, through coaches and owners. We get a chance to actually have our young people understand not just what it means to be an athlete on the field or on the court, but what it means to be an owner a manager, a construction development person within the space that we use the sport for in a way that makes sense for us long term. I've had a conversation with groups like Marriott, working on behalf of Marriott, about how we can connect our young people, our student athletes, to careers in their fields, in industries that they may not know about, but it's only through the power of sport those engagements happen, those connections happen. Through the summer programs, the summer camps, summer basketball programs at these different parks, the Goodman Leagues, et cetera, our young people get a chance to not just witness and observe kids play, young men and young women play sport, they get a chance to see the sports entertainment industry in action in real world. The thing about it is this, I live in Ward 6, recently moved to Ward 7. I coach in Ward 7. I engage young people in Ward 8 and 7 east of the river. And a lot of these kids that we engage, they are so far removed from the economic center, the economic strength. They don't understand what they're living in. They don't see it every day. They see it through sport. They don't know what they're seeing sometimes. And by us having titles and branding and names and programs and operations that make sense for other people to really understand with clarity what's happening, it gives us a chance to actually move the city and the young people who will eventually lead this city to a place of promise and prosperity. Not only, within the city walls, my son plays on these circuit teams. We travel. And I see teams who drive through D.C. to go to a small town in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, to play in the tournament. And I see small towns raise millions of dollars from the weekend through basketball or volleyball events. That money should be coming back to the city if we really are strategic and we have a plan for what that means and what that looks like for the future of our city. I really believe we can actually change things through having a title, an operation, people, and strategy processes that are designed to keep individuals coming into our city, investing in our city, building our city, and having our young people understand more and more the power of sports for economic development.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I'm sure I'll have a follow-up for that because I heard you loudly and clearly when you talked about driving through those small towns. I drive through from D.C. to those small towns too, and see what the economic impact is when all those events are occurring. So definitely we'll have follow-up. Next, to see you.
Thank you, Chairman McDuffie, and thanks to the members of the council and staff. My name is Damian Cosby. I'm a PGA professional, and I'm the executive director for National Links Trust. National Links Trust is the nonprofit organization that operates the city's only 3 public access golf courses, Rock Creek Park Golf, Langston Golf Course, and East Potomac Golf Links. And we have a 50-year operating agreement with the National Park Service for all 3 facilities. We are seeking to revitalize all 3 facilities as true community assets and economic drivers. I'm here today to testify in support of Bill 26-119, the official sports capital of the United States Designation Act of 2025. Every day at our facilities, we see the impact sports have on our community. Our facilities provide access to golf and its many mental and physical health benefits for people of all different backgrounds. We also offer employment opportunities to community members and tourism dollars to the district. Today, we host multiple national events, and in the future, following rehabilitation projects at all 3 properties, and in the passing of this bill, even more golfers from across the country will descend upon our city to play at 3 of the best public golf courses in the country. With this bill, golf and sports in general will be in a better position to succeed in Washington, D.C., and further capitalize on their social and economic good. We urge the council to pass this bill and ensure a bright future for sports in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Really appreciate it. Next.
Good morning, esteemed members and of the committee and our guests. My name is Tariq Delavalade, and I'm honored to serve as the Executive Director for United Golfers Association. Founded in 1925 right here in Washington, D.C., the UGA has been at the forefront of growing and preserving the game of golf for under-resourced and underfunded communities. Today, I stand before you in strong support of B260119 Act, which seeks to designate Washington, D.C. as the official sports capital of the United States. This is not just a title. It is a statement of ambition, a recognition of D.C.'s extraordinary potential, and a call to action to elevate our city as a premier destination for sports at every level. When people think of Washington, D.C., they think of history, politics, and culture. But what many overlook is the city's deep connections to sports, especially golf. With 54 holes of golf spread across the historic areas, which is Langston, East Potomac, and Rock Creek golf courses, they are more than just green spaces. They are untapped economic engines capable of generating revenue through professional, collegiate, and youth events, as well as community engagement programs. Imagine what we could achieve with the revitalization effort that transforms these venues into championship caliber golf courses. We can attract professional, collegiate, and junior, as well as corporate outings and charity golf tournaments, bringing local, regional, and national visitors, jobs, and millions of dollars in economic impact directly into our city. Right now, DC-based organizations take their philanthropic and corporate golf tournaments right outside of our city limits. Unintentionally, however, directly diverting revenue right out of our city. By upgrading our golf courses and providing world-class facilities, we can create an undeniable incentive for these events to stay right here in Washington, D.C., ensuring that the economic and social impact directly benefits our local businesses, workforce, and students. After speaking to students, speaking of students, D.C. Public Schools stands to gain an immense opportunity from this initiative. By reintroducing and expanding golf programs throughout our high schools right here in Washington, D.C., both public and charter and private, we can open up pathways for scholarships, internships, and careers in a sport that has been historically been out of reach for many of our youth right here in our city. Golf instills discipline, strategy, and patience, skills that translate into success in both academics and in life. With the right investment, we can cultivate the next generation of golf talent right here in Washington, D.C., just as we've seen earlier with basketball. By officially designating Washington, D.C. as the sports capital of the United States, we send a powerful message by embracing golf as a key part of this designation and effort as we unlock an economic and cultural force that can be underutilized, that has been underutilized for way too long. Washington, D.C. is a city of first. Let's add another title to it as the premier destination of world-class golf.
Thank you for your testimony. I want to thank each of the witnesses for their testimony. March, today's date, the 20th? It's all a blur for me now with everything going on around us. But March 20th, 2025, there's a lot of things that the district has on its plate in terms of our local economy, in terms of moving our city forward, challenges financially, et cetera. Some people might say, you know, why are you focusing on a bill to make the District of Columbia the official sports capital of the United States? I heard you all's testimony, just in this panel's testimony, not to mention all that we heard before us. There are a lot of reasons that I heard as to why we would want to make the District of Columbia the official sports capital of the United States. I like how James put it. It's a strategic investment in our economy, and I want to give you an opportunity just to expound on that. Sure. If you can hit the mic.
Yeah, I mean, this is the magic of youth sports, right? It's attractive to a lot of kids, and when done right with the right people, it's very sticky. The idea is you get into this environment, you find an adult mentor, a coach, a caring person that is dedicating their time to your development, not just your skill development around the sport, but your human development. Many of these organizations out there doing this high-quality work have mentoring programs, academic tutoring, college readiness, job employment. That's the good stuff, right? And then sport is that attraction that draws kids in. When kids get involved with an environment like that, all of a sudden, what you can see happen is, especially hard to reach kids in really tough neighborhoods, is they can turn what can be a very predictable negative future because of the trauma that they've experienced, the things that they've seen too much at an early age, and somehow they can shed that and transition that into something positive and potential. And when that happens, kids stay in school. They see a future for themselves. When they graduate high school, they're not on government funding. They're possibly going to secondary school and have a job, and they're contributing with taxes. So that just education alone, that return on investment is incredible. When we don't lock kids up, as I mentioned, I mean, that is a major drain on our local economy. And it's not only about the savings on the dollars that are given back to the community, but it's a real life, because we know that when kids get involved with that type of system, it's hard to get out of that system. Health, type 2 diabetes used to be adult onset. Now it's happening at 18, 19, 20 years old, right? But when kids are physically active and involved in sports, it brings down the healthcare costs. So that number that we're looking at, it's a tough number to get to, but national research is showing that for about every dollar invested in these types of programs that Amir and Donald are running, about $11 is returned to society.
Donald, you mentioned driving, parents are driving through D.C. to smaller towns, and to be clear, there's nothing wrong, nothing against these smaller towns. Lots of great people, lots of things that are happening there. But D.C. parents are driving from D.C. to a lot of these smaller towns to engage in sport. And it's not just for a day. In some cases, I imagine you're there for a few days. You're talking about spending money in a local economy somewhere else. What could be the impact of the District of Columbia if we were to attract more of those types of events here in our city, in the nation's capital?
Sure. So for the average family that travels with my son's team, they're spending about $1,000 a weekend between travel, between tournament fees, between hotels, food, et cetera, for 2 days outside of D.C. Now, when we think about it, the teams that are coming from this area to these small towns to play are the attraction points for these teams, these tournaments. So if everything that we have as far as the resource, human capital, within that youth amateur sports thing is what it was drawing people to these other cities to play, why can't we figure out how to best hold that talent here? The same way Howard University is recruiting within D.C. to keep those players here to build programs. The same thing can happen at the amateur level within our sports. Now, this happens not just in a small town, but in Orlando, Florida, in Greensboro. There's all these larger youth sports events, and people deem these as youth sports capitals. Well, why not have that here? Why not we really put our footprint on like the sports capital piece, not just on the professional space, but also the amateur space? You think about it in not just that regard, when it comes to high school sports, maybe 4 of the top 20 national basketball teams come from this area, from Sidwell Friends all the way to the public school at Jackson Reed. So, and that's boys and girls sports. So we have to really think about how do we harness that energy to keep that money coming back in. Now, in regards to that's retaining money, but drawing in dollars, we have through Destination DC, Events DC, these large systems around tourism and how to retain tourism. We have a university in George Washington University has a whole sports and hospitality program. There's programs at Ballou High School where young kids are learning hospitality within the school system. These are potential internships. These are potential opportunities for our young people, not just to like talk about hospitality and tourism in theory, but to really see it played out in an area where they have a passion.
Yeah, appreciate that. And making D.C. the official sports capital of the United States also taps into all the other things that we offer in addition to sports. And that kind of feeds that sports economy. You mentioned hotel nights, you mentioned restaurants. When I think about families that travel through the District of Columbia to get to some small town for their kid to play volleyball or basketball or football or soccer, think about people who leave the district. It's a lot of money. It's money that could be here. And I always think about it in these terms. When you go to those places, I'm sure there are things to do that people can engage in while they're there, but it's nothing like what you can do when you're in the nation's capital, right? You go there for a couple of days, you want to find some good food, You know, you want to have a good night's sleep, good luck. Come to the District of Columbia, you make a vacation of it, right? You got the mall, you got the monuments, you got the museums, you've got the basketball, the soccer, the volleyball, the golf, plus is the experience that you get in the District of Columbia. It's sports plus. So the value to our local economy is immense, and I think even greater if you think about a family's likelihood to spend money associated with a sporting event in the District of Columbia versus some of these other places. So I wanted to highlight that.
Can I add two more things?
Sure.
I was in a meeting with foundations recently, DC-based foundations, and they're looking for ways to have their dollars be more impactful long-term. And when I think about youth sports and I think about facility, I think about museum, and I think about investment. And I think about if there's a existing philanthropic base who is trying to figure out ways to invest dollars into creating a facility that like has a long-term impact within community, I think one of the best ways to do it is through sports, because there are ways you can create these money-making, revenue-generating opportunities for local community, for nonprofits, for whomever it might be, and government. At the same time, having philanthropic communities feel and see that their dollars are being invested in ways that make sense long-term. Right. The other thing is, I think by having DCB, the capital of sports, it puts pressure on professional sports teams to really get more involved and ensure that their initiatives really make sense for the city. Because you're tying not just independently to like the brand of Commander or to Miami Sports Wizard, whatever. This falls under the city's initiative to be the sports capital, and these are the priorities that fall within it.
Got it. Damien, Tariq, part of this bill's aim is really to have Events DC develop a plan to promote and enhance the district as the sports capital of the United States. Where does golf fit into that? I mean, you hear about professional sports. It's not always top of mind in terms of sports that people think about. It's a very important sport for a whole lot of reasons. I've talked to you both extensively about golf. Where does golf play into enhancing the district's reputation as the premier destination for sporting events, teams, and activities? And what more should the city be doing to engage our youth around golf?
Excellent question, and thanks for the opportunity. Golf is one of the sports that usually isn't talked about when you're looking at economic drivers. And one of the responsibilities that our organization, National Links Trust, is taking on is truly renovating all three facilities in the district and making sure they are economic drivers, making sure they're true community assets. To several panelists' point, we have people that are living in the district for whatever reason. They don't want to play the three golf courses in DC, so they're going to Northern Virginia, they're going to Maryland, they're going to Pennsylvania. I know Ty talked about corporations that have charity events that are not utilizing the facilities in DC. So, our organization is going to change that with the renovation projects to keep those dollars within the district, attract more people to the district. Chairman McDuffie, you mentioned, Washington, D.C. being a destination. People come from all over the world to see our museums and our monuments. They should stay for our golf courses as well. So we want to have golf facilities that are monuments to municipal golf. And people will travel across the country to come play these three facilities. We have no doubt about that. So that will allow us to expand our workforce development programs, to expand our partnerships with associations like the First Tee of Greater Washington, D.C., to continue to develop young leaders, working with the 40-plus nonprofits that utilize our facilities. So the more economic activity we can drive at our three facilities will allow us to expand that community access, to allow us to expand the low-cost programming we do, or free programming, maintain partnerships with Youth on Course that allow young people to play our golf courses for as little as $5. So all of those things with the renovated facilities will allow us to just expand all of that community impact we have within the city.
So it was great. I mean, I concur with everything that Damien shared, and he and I have had several conversations about how do we grow the game. Sometimes it's expanding the game. Here in Washington, D.C., you have over 60-plus high schools. But what many may not know is that There are over 225,000 high school kids currently playing golf nationwide. That's a big number. The question is how many of those kids are in Washington, D.C.? And if that number is petite, then how do we expand that number? How do we go into the DCPS public schools, the charter schools, and the private schools as well, and the Catholic schools, and see what those numbers look like? I think if we understood what those numbers look like, how many golf programs that are within the city, we could see how to expand that. And yes, we have 3 public golf courses that are outside, but there are other private, not organizations, but sites. There's City Swing, there's X Golf, and then we also have 5-Iron. And these are all indoor facilities where you can go and play golf. And so golf is different these days. Now you can play golf outside, but you could also play in golf leagues inside. And so these kids can actually go inside, play what looks like a computer and a video game, and play and compete against each other nationwide, but also locally and play in golf leagues. Men are doing it and women are doing it weekly at X Golf and 5-Iron as well. But I think that if we can expand golf beyond just what is typical, I think we'll be okay. And I think for my organization, we oversee what's called the Sapphire Golf Tour, which is the world's first professional golf tour for Black women. And I'm a part of another group that we oversee, National Junior Golf League, which is an AAU golf program that is now going to be partnering with AAU, bringing golf leagues and clubs across the United States, and we'll be overseeing a lot of that. But again, we can do that if the courses are in great shape, and Damien and his team at National Links Trust are doing an amazing job of uplifting them. But again, once they get uplifted, it's easier to be able to attract certain events to be able to support that.
Just one last question. Amir, you talked about a lot of things related to soccer, but you also talked about positive youth development and character development. Why is that important, and how are you using soccer as a hook to really reel kids in order to convey all those other things that are important for these young people?
Of course, yeah. I think, any sport, is just a powerful vehicle for that character development and for youth development. We've heard from Mark Ingram to others, the Howard coach and their the player, discipline, self-confidence, self-awareness, emotional awareness, the ability to navigate conflict and work in teams. I think there's just so many things that we gain from playing sports that, it's impossible to replicate with other mediums or other platforms or other educational environments for young people. So what I'm bullish on is that, and I think in regards to this legislation, is that being really at the forefront for us as how we approach community, especially marginalized communities in DC, and making sure that they have access to sport for this reason of, character development and youth development. And then beyond that, something that we've touched on all here, in terms of that matriculation and college access and potentially even workforce development. I think we try to approach this in a holistic way so that the sport is guiding a youth participant through a program. They're learning, that emotional awareness, that confidence, and then, gaining those life skills. And then for a lot of us, we're trying to teach them or show them how to become valuable members of their community by reinvesting their time and energy and efforts into programs like the ones that we're running. So for us, we coach up our kids to be our next coaches, right? We give them an initial employment opportunity that's going to hopefully empower them, not only just economically, but give them some skills for their resume that can translate to their next role. So it's really a cycle of empowerment that I think sports are crucial to. And, the more that we can expose our youth to these different elements, the better our communities will be, the more the more success, people will have, having access to programs like these.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate each of your testimony this afternoon. It's been incredibly helpful to build this record out for this measure. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We have, I think, one more in-person witness and then a few witnesses who are testifying virtually. I'm going to call Alex Stein up, who's the final witness who's testifying in person. I appreciate your patience. I know a lot of witnesses have been here since we started this morning, and we'll get to our virtual witnesses after this testimony. Good afternoon to you. You can begin your testimony. You have 3 minutes.
My name's Alex Stein. Thank you, Mr. McDuffie. And you've had a lot of people come up here and speak, including Heisman Trophy winner Mark Ingram. And everybody spoke in support of this bill. But I noticed something. Everybody here has a personal investment in this city. Now, when you look at Washington, D.C., what do you think about? Politics, right? We don't think about sports. So I think that you, by designating Washington, D.C. as a sports capital of America, is a travesty, because if we think about sports, let's think about a real team, the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, right? We don't call the Redskins America's team. Your team here doesn't even have a name. You guys changed the name. Remember the Washington Wizards? You had to change the name from the Bullets to the Wizards. Then you had Gilbert Arenas in the arena with guns pointing at players. So, if you think about what Washington, D.C. stands for and what they break records with, in 2023, they had nearly 500 homicides, breaking the previous record of most homicides ever in Washington, D.C. So I think if we're talking about records, Washington, D.C. would be more fitted to be designated as the crime capital of America and not the sports capital. And you have sports, you might not know this, Mr. McDuffie, but NASCAR. Y'all don't have any NASCAR in this town. Imagine Dale Earnhardt right now, the Intimidator, rolling in his black Chevy right now, thinking about somewhere in D.C. is going to become the sports capital of the world. When y'all don't even have representation when it comes to college football. You had one of the best players in the country sitting here, Blake Harper, I believe his name is, one of the top players. But he's talking about Howard basketball. Howard is a good basketball program, but y'all will never have a team that will compete for a football national championship in this city. And in Texas, where I'm from, football's king. And believe it or not, football is the #1 sport here as well. It's the most popular sport. And you look at the Ravens, they're 30 miles away. So when it comes to football, y'all don't even have the best team in a 30-mile radius. So it's an absolute joke that we're going to sit here and you guys are going to try to designate this town as a sports capital of America. I am in opposition of this 100%. It needs to be a real city like Dallas, Texas, that has real universities like SMU, that has been a top college football program and a top basketball program. And we need a freaking city that represents the whole entire country. When people think about Washington, D.C., all they think about is politics. And what does politics do? It divides us. Sports are supposed to be the ultimate unifier. Whether you're rich or poor, you get on the same court and you compete. So when we try to designate Washington, D.C. as the sports capital, I think it is an injustice to every other great city like Boston that has incredible sports history. New York City, even Los Angeles has great history. So you don't have to make it Dallas, because I would want Dallas. But I think that this is an actual travesty, and I know a lot of very important athletes have spoken in favor of this, but I truly have to say that I speak in opposition of naming Washington, D.C. the sports capital of America.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Turn next to our virtual witnesses. If we could have Gregory McCarthy, Kenny Owens, and Kellen Newland. I have joined us virtually, and we will hear first from Gregory McCarthy. Good afternoon to you all. Thank you for your patience. Look forward to hearing your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairman McDuffie. It's a delight to be here. I've been testifying before this council for almost 3 decades, and I can say that being there in person is a lot better than remote, and I certainly hope you agree, but I'll do my best. We have our opening day next week, and I wasn't able to get away from the office today to join you. It's also worth noting, I've never seen a council member have a hearing of this length with the member having a perpetual smile and sign of joy on his face like you've had the whole morning. So I think that speaks to what a great lover of sports you are, and that certainly comes through. So congratulations on all the leadership that you've shown on this topic, making us indeed the sports capital of America. A lot's been said. I'm not going to repeat it, but I'll just underscore a couple of important things. Our city needs to evolve from an office and government town to also be a sports town. That's just an economic necessity from where we are right now. And unlike a lot of other cities where sports just competes, where the jurisdiction competes with other entities in the taxing jurisdiction for economic activity, when most of our fans come from Maryland and Virginia, and they would otherwise be spending their dollars at MGM in Prince George's County or Strathmore in Montgomery County or Wolf Trap in Fairfax County, the sports teams here in the districts are true economic drivers, driving money to the economy that would otherwise be elsewhere here in the region. So I think it's very evident that we're the sports capital of the region, and no other city in America, I really disagree with the gentleman before me, can make that claim for the country. And a couple of reasons why. We can aspire to earn the patriotism and the love of sports fans around the country. Four of our teams actually have names that invoke that: United, National, Spirit, Capitals. As a seat of the U.S. Congress, the district is home to legislators and staff from around the country who want to enjoy sporting events. Come to the congressional baseball game and see that in person. Come to the 6 games we have every year where military people from around the country come to celebrate their service with us. And we tell them, we know you have another hometown team from where you're from, but when you're in Washington, D.C., we want to be your home away from home team. No one else in the country can make that claim. And the same is true with international visitors. Just last year, we had a game here to celebrate the NATO summit. The Secretary General of NATO threw out the first pitch. The year before that, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom was here at a game. Only this city and only our teams can attract international visitors like that. So how do we sustain this? 2 things, and they've been said before. I'll go really quick. We have to tie together our professional sports teams with our youth teams, with our intramural teams, and our collegiate teams. All those things need to go together and be part of a concerted plan, which I think you've assigned to Events DC, who's more than ably suited to cover that out. And lastly, for the professional sports teams that have venues, our venues need to be updated and modernized constantly. The fan experience is always evolving in our sports. And we're not just competing with other sports teams, but golfing venues, bowling alleys, theaters, and the like. And our fans want the best experiences, or else we'll fall behind. So the investment that the city's made in this ballpark and Cap One Arena, hopefully a site at RFK that will attract football, is needed and certainly a good investment. I have submitted my testimony for the record, and that's a summary of it. Thank you very much.
And thank you for the summary. I really appreciate the testimony. Just before you go, though, if you could just talk about the impact of Nats Park on the area around Navy Yard and the Capitol Riverfront. You've been here in this city for a really long time, and working in government, working in the private sector. What has it meant to invest in sports in that way, in that part of the city? What has it meant collectively for the District of Columbia?
Well, let's not overlook the social impact of the unifying nature of sports. Whether you're black or white, whether you're a newcomer or an old-timer, we can all unite around sports. So when I go to my barbershop, everybody sitting in the chair is talking about the game on the TV last night. So there aren't a lot of things that bind our city together socially like sports. So that's key. Financially, I'll just talk about our ballpark. $18 million a year to the Treasury from taxes inside the ballpark. And conservatively, we work with a bid to estimate what the impact is on 2,000 feet around the ballpark. It's about $31 million a year in incremental revenue that goes to the general fund of the city. And it's been critical. They tell us the restaurants and bars around the ballpark and stores, 61% of their annual volume is on our 81 game nights. And they've come to us and said, hey, get more winter shows, get more concerts, get more events on non-game days so we can fill that out. So we're proud to do that, and we have a great partnership with the Capitol Riverfront bid to make that happen.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate the time and testimony. I'm going to turn next to Kelly Newland. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the council. It's a real privilege to be here. And it's been really rewarding just listening to the testimony this morning of how big of an impact sports has in the district. My name is Kelly Newland. excuse me, and I serve as the executive director of the Maryland State Golf Association. As the governing body of amateur golf in Maryland and the District of Columbia, we represent over 54,000 golfers, many whom live, work, and play in Washington, D.C. and the surrounding counties in Maryland. I'm here today to express my strong support for Bill 26119, the official sports capital of the United States Designation Act. Sports plays a critical role in strengthening communities, bringing people together, and promoting health, wellness, and economic vitality. Golf is no exception. Washington, D.C.'s public golf courses, Rock Creek, Langston, and East Potomac, which you heard about earlier, serve as community hubs, offering affordable access to the game for all people of all backgrounds. I wanted to highlight, while I had some time, some of the major championships that are coming to our area over the next several years. And while they may not be hosted exactly in the district, they're hosted close enough by. As the council may be aware, Congressional Country Club is hosting 9 championships, which began in 2022, over the next decade or so. This includes the PGA Championship in 2030 and the Ryder Cup in 2037. And while Congressional is located in Potomac, Maryland, there are obviously strong ties and associations of Congressional Country Club to the District of Columbia. Just down the road, Woodmont Country Club in Rockville this July will play host to the U.S. Adaptive Open. The U.S. Adaptive Open is a national championship conducted by the USGA that showcases the world's top golfers with disabilities, providing an elite competitive platform for players across various impairment categories. So we're proud to have the U.S. Adaptive Open this year, as well as in 2026. Woodmont's also going to host the U.S. Junior Boys in 2028. Columbia Country Club, just down the road from the district, will play host to the 2027 U.S. Senior Women's Amateur and the 2035 U.S. Senior Amateur National Championships. So as you can see, over the next decade, our area will host a series of prestigious PGA and USGA championships, bringing world-class golf to our region and showcasing that talent on the national stage. So to that point, the MSGA has a strong support for this bill, and we look forward to seeing the district continue to lead the way in sports excellence. So thank you for the time and the consideration today.
And thank you for your time and your testimony. We really appreciate hearing your testimony and really making that part of our record for today's hearing. So thank you for that. Our next witness is Kenny Owens, Executive Director of DCSAA. Good afternoon to you. Glad you can join us.
Good afternoon, Council Member. And I appreciate you allowing me to testify virtually, as I've been sick for the last couple of days. So I do appreciate the opportunity. My name is Kenny Owens, and I serve as the Executive Director of the District of Columbia State Athletic Association. The DCSAA is the sanctioning body for high school athletics in the District of Columbia. In my position, I am fortunate to work with many other agencies and entities that serve DC's athletic communities in various capacities. It is an honor to testify today in strong support of the official sports capital of the United States Designation Act of 2025. Washington, D.C. has long been a hub for athletic excellence, hosting premier sporting events, serving as a home to championship professional teams, a vibrant collegiate athletic scene, and providing thriving environment for youth in high school athletics. This legislation is not just about recognizing our city's storied sports legacy. It's a crucial step in positioning Washington, D.C. as a go-to destination for sports tourism, economic development, and community engagement. Through DCSAA's work, we have seen firsthand the economic benefits that sports bring to the city. One clear example is the 2023 Geico State Championship Invitational, a premier high school basketball tournament that attracted top teams and fans from across the country, and that DCSAA co-hosted at Georgetown University. This event alone generated significant revenue for the district through hotels, stays, restaurant visits, and other local spending, reinforcing the role of sports as an economic driver. Beyond major events, DCSAA continues to foster an environment where student athletes thrive while contributing to the local economy. Our championships bring in visitors from across the region, supporting local businesses and showcasing the district's as a premier destination for sports competition. Declaring Washington, D.C. as the official sports capital of the United States will further solidify our reputation and allow us to attract even more high-profile events. This designation will enhance our ability to engage professional sports organizations, expand our partnerships with national governing bodies, and create opportunities for local businesses and residents. I urge the committee to support the legislation and help Washington, D.C. take its rightful place as the nation's leading city for sports. Thank you for your time and consideration.
And thank you so much for making time to testify. Sorry to hear about you being under the weather, but appreciate the commitment to get your testimony on the record. So thank you for that. Last witness for this panel is Joseph Smith. I'm glad you were able to join us virtually. Look forward to hearing your testimony.
Thank you, Chairperson McDuffie, Committee on Business and Economic Development, members for the opportunity to testify in support of Bill 26-119, Official Sports Capital of the United States Designation Act. Before I start, just want to kind of say that my dad, Pat Smith, actually had the privilege of coaching Coach Blakeney at DeMatha Catholic High School, and my dad was the entry point to my role in sports. And I think that's just a powerful example of the community and continuity that sports can create. It's great to see. It was great to see you, Coach Blakeney. Go Stags. I'm here representing the Center for Healing and Justice Through Sport. We're a nonprofit organization dedicated to expanding access to healing-centered sport experiences for young people and athletes through coach training, consulting, and collective action. We're grounded in neuroscience, research, and our mission is to make sport healing for all youth and athletes everywhere. And by healing-centered sport, we mean sport that is high quality, that is youth-centered, in a space where young people have a safe and inclusive experience to develop a sense of agency. We support athletes and teams through training and consulting to be able to leverage our expertise to support their innovative programs. We believe that healing is a right for all. And through the wide appeal of accessibility to sport, we found that sport is the ideal environment for justice-oriented and healing-centered philosophies. This work changes the lives of not only participating athletes, but their families, their communities, and the world at large. Change through sport is something that young people can see themselves in and make their own. Through our partnership with organizations like Fight for Children and organizations like Donald Curtis's Soul and Amir Lowry's Open Goal Project, we have witnessed the deep impact that sports-based youth development programs across the district have every day to increase access and advance equity. Our grassroots movement of sport-based youth development, outdoor rec, and dance organizations, and those who support them, is actively coordinating and connecting and convening key stakeholders within youth sport, education, parks, and rec, and other local efforts. We're a citywide network of organizations that are leveraging the power of play and movement within our own communities to unlock the full potential of the youth development outcomes that come with sport. Our goal is to advance these outcomes by building relationships and sharing learnings across the sector. We all have heard the different benefits of sport, and speaking from sort of our neurosequential background, one of the greatest things that sport can give is access to a positive, caring adult to help young people deal with overwhelming stress. And I could not be in more support of that in advancing this bill to access more opportunities for young people in sport. Thank you.
And thank you very much for your testimony. I want to thank each of the witnesses for taking time out of their busy schedules to provide testimony to the Committee on Business and Economic Development virtually. We really appreciate your contributions to this hearing. I don't have any questions for the panel, but would definitely want to thank you for your time and your testimony. And before we move on to the next measures on the agenda for the committee, I want to thank all of our witnesses who testified today on this particular legislation to designate the District of Columbia as the official sports capital of the United States. I truly appreciate your insights and your testimony. The work you all are doing to grow the sports economy and our community for the District of Columbia is truly invaluable. The sports economy is an investment in the District of Columbia and our residents. For example, today, Monumental Sports mentioned that they are launching their district dribble initiative that helps students in the District of Columbia get access to the sport of basketball. And they're doing that at Brown Education Campus in the Langston Terrace neighborhood of the District of Columbia. It's very important work. I also wanted to acknowledge that Deputy Mayor of Planning and Economic Development, Nina Albert, as well as DC native and former NFL star Vernon Davis, both submitted testimony in support of this legislation. Within Deputy Mayor Albert's testimony, she notes that the district in 2023, sports teams generated over 7 million visitors, and 88% of those visitors were non-district residents. That is attracting massive economic activity to the district that brings tax revenue and investment back into the district and its residents. As we have heard today, the opportunities are endless, and as on and off of the field. We have a distinct opportunity to grow the access to sports and to our local sports economy, and we must capitalize on it. Today was just the first step of many that we'll be taking to grow the access of sports and our local sports economy. I plan on continuing today's conversation with you all out in the community and implementing the ideas that we discussed today, and hearing more ideas from residents across all 8 wards. I'm excited. I'm hearing about all the work that you all have already done in sports and the work that we have ahead to make the district the sports capital of the United States. The committee looks forward to working with you all to advance this legislation and in partnership outside of this building to grow on the ideas that we chatted about today. So thank you. Next, I'm going to turn to the second measure on our agenda, Bill 26-32, the Uniform Special Deposits Act of 2025. The bill was introduced on January 7th, 2025 by Chairman Mendelson at the request of the Uniform Law Commission and referred to the committee on January 21st, 2025. This bill, if approved, would establish clear criteria for special deposits, creating a framework for banks and their customers to utilize special deposits with greater legal certainty. A special deposit is a deposit of money at a bank created for a particular purpose where the identity of the person who is meant to receive the deposit is not determined until a specified event or contingency takes place. Special deposits are important payment tools that can be utilized for different purposes, such as construction projects, settlement funds, and payments through trust funds. These deposits are often less risky and are better protected in the event of bankruptcy. Despite the benefits of utilizing special deposits for personal and commercial transactions, the existing legal framework for special deposits is inconsistent, rendering them unusable. The Uniform Law Commission identified 4 main barriers to the consistent use of special deposits that we'll hear about today. To resolve these concerns, the Uniform Law Commission prepared the Uniform Special Deposits Act, which is designed to clarify rules for the banks, prevent abuse of the special deposits by those who might use them to shield their assets from creditors, and protect the property rights of potential beneficiaries and depositors. The bill before the council intends to adopt the Uniform Special Deposits Act, which will make discrete changes to the code to address existing inconsistencies. Specifically, the Uniform Special Deposits Act will clarify the treatment of special deposits in the event of the bankruptcy of a depositor, clarify the applicability of the credit process on a special deposit, and will clarify the legality of the bank's right to exercise a set-off or right to recoupment against a special deposit that is unrelated to the special deposit. The Uniform Special Deposits Act was completed by the National Conferences of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws in 2023 and subsequently received the endorsement of the American College of Commercial Finance Lawyers. So far, the bill has been enacted in 5 other states, and 10 additional states have introduced this legislation for further consideration. We have, I think, 2 public witnesses who signed up to testify, both of whom will be joining via Zoom, and I ask each of those participants to just turn off their camera, mute their microphone when they're not speaking. I look forward to hearing their testimony, and we're going to turn to them now. Okay. All right, we're going to turn to Patrick Gita, Chair of the Uniform Special Deposits Act Drafting Committee.
Very good. Chairperson McDuffie, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I address to you and to members of the District of Columbia Committee on Business and Economic Development. Thank you very much for this opportunity to testify in support of DC Bill 2632, which adopts the Uniform Special Deposits Act. As you mentioned, I am chair of the drafting committee and the enactment committee for this particular enactment, and very much appreciate the fact that the district has taken notice of and afforded this attention to this, we believe, very important bill. Special deposits are banking products that have different characteristics than other deposit accounts like checking or savings deposits. You might think of a special deposit as being in the nature of a protected escrow account. Special deposits are established for a particular purpose, and a beneficiary's entitlement to payment is determined only after a contingency has actually occurred. That contingency could be the closing of a sale of real estate, could be the distribution of funds to class members after the court approves the settlement of a class action, or the distribution of a commercial tenant security deposit when the leasehold ends. This law ensures that the funds will be available and will be distributed to the proper person entitled to them once that contingency happens. While they're a vital component of our banking infrastructure, legal uncertainties have caused many to avoid using the special deposit. Case laws analogize special deposit to a trust, a bailment, or custody arrangement. However, those characterizations are anachronistic in the context of modern banking law and do not reflect how the special deposit is used in practice, nor do they afford the protections necessary for a special deposit to be special. The key objectives of this bill are to preserve and protect important functionality of the special deposit by eliminating the legal uncertainties that I mentioned, honor the expectations of the parties, build on existing law applicable to general deposits in all states, and disrupt existing law as little as possible. And finally, deliver narrowly tailored solutions to cure four mischiefs that can frustrate the expectations of the parties electing to use a special deposit. I'll briefly go through what those four mischiefs are. The first mischief is the identification of what a special deposit is. History and existing case precedent have created nothing but confusion over what it is and how to identify one. This act provides a bright line test of what a special deposit is as opposed to a general deposit. Under the act, a special deposit must meet 5 criteria. It must be designated as special in a written account agreement governing the deposit. It must be for the benefit of at least 2 beneficiaries and denominated in money for the permissible purpose identified in the account agreement and subject to a contingency specified in the account agreement. If all those characteristics are present, the deposit is a special deposit. The requirement that special deposits serve a permissible purpose is a critical and crucial feature of the Act. It prevents the special deposit from being used inappropriately for fraudulent or abusive purposes, for example, to defraud or evade creditors. There's protections in the law that prevent that. The special deposit must serve a permissible purpose from its creation until its termination. In addition, the Act ensures that a deposit or transfer voidable under other law is not protected by merely designating it as a special deposit. And for example, a bankruptcy preference is still a bankruptcy preference and would be honored, and should it be determined under other law that a transfer by putting money into a special deposit account is voidable or fraudulent under other law, that voidable or fraudulent transaction law would be honored. Mischief number 2, bankruptcy of the depositor. The Act clarifies that the treatment of a special deposit in the event of a depositor's bankruptcy. Under current law of almost all states, a depositor's rights in its bank account upon filing a bankruptcy proceeding become vulnerable to being drawn into that bankruptcy estate. An intended special deposit of that bankrupt depositor without the benefit of this law could be swept into the bankruptcy estate. And in my materials that were submitted, we provide precedent of fairly recent federal court decisions that are consistent with this interpretation that monies of a bankrupt depositor go to the bankruptcy estate. One example, if you imagine a commercial office building where the landlord requires tenants to prepay their rent as a security deposit, the landlord could put each tenant's security deposit into a single commingled account. If there is no damage to the property at the end of the lease, the security deposit is due to be returned to the tenant. If the landlord declares bankruptcy, that tenant's security deposit will be caught up in the bankruptcy proceedings. This act will prevent that outcome and ensure funds remain available and protect the tenant from that eventuality. Mischief number 3, premature creditor process. The Act provides certainty about the applicability of creditor process on a special deposit. Under current law, there is considerable uncertainty as to whether a creditor of a debtor who is a potential payee from a special deposit may either attach the special deposit or reach the special deposit with a temporary restraining order. Creditor process such as that can freeze a special deposit and interfere with the intended purpose. There is case precedent demonstrating how devastating this can be. There's the case of NML versus Argentina, 727 Fed 3rd 230, that demonstrates the devastating effect. This was a horror story for those involved in that very substantial case, and it was a result of there not being a special deposit available to protect the funds. The Section 9 of the Act also provides the creditor process that's not enforceable against the bank holding a special deposit. It may well be enforceable against the bank holding a special deposit with respect to amount that it must pay to a beneficiary, but only after a determination that the contingency has occurred. But the special deposit itself is fully protected until that contingency is determined. Section 10 eliminates the ability of creditors to use an injunction or temporary restraining order to achieve the same or a similar outcome. Final mischief number 4 is bank set-off. This act also addresses whether or not a bank holding a special deposit can exercise a right of set-off or recoupment. Section 11 provides that a bank may not use special deposits to satisfy unrelated debts. An example might be that if a depositor takes out a separate loan from the bank that it has the special deposits with, in order to collect on maybe that defaulted loan, the bank can't invade the special deposit funds in order to accomplish the satisfaction of that debt. There are certain other limited exceptions dealing with fees associated with a special deposit in situations where an accounting offset might be needed, but it's only if it's related to the special deposit account itself. The general rule is clear. There is no threat from recoupment or set-off, and the special deposit is protected if properly set up as a special deposit. Finally, just a few points on self-imposed limitations of the Uniform Special Deposit Act. The Act is importantly drafted with a minimalist philosophy and addresses only the 4 specific mischiefs existing under current common law. This enables the Act to operate in conjunction and to complement existing commercial law and embraces the parties' freedom to contract. An important feature is that this is purely an opt-in statute. The bank and its customers must elect in writing to treat the special deposit as a special deposit to be covered by the Uniform Special Deposit Act. This permits existing relationships to continue undisturbed. Parties can also amend their existing agreements to make them covered by this act if an existing relationship satisfies the Act's other criteria in order to extend the protections to that existing relationship. Finally, the Act does not require banks to offer a special deposit product at all. Some banks might decide that this will not be among their offered suite of products, or that they will only offer it in specific situations under limited circumstances. So in conclusion, the Special Deposit Act is intended not to introduce new legal concepts, but rather to eliminate uncertainty that attaches to the use of special deposits under existing law, and therefore help ensure that the expectations of the parties entering into those transactions are properly met. Thank you. Appreciate this opportunity to provide this testimony, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your testimony. How do you pronounce your last name, Patrick?
Gaida.
Gaida, okay. I wanted to make sure I got it correct. You just provided some of the most thorough testimony we've gotten in this committee, and I really appreciate you laying out what is otherwise a pretty complex area of the law and into some component parts that make it more digestible to the layperson. So I really appreciate your testimony. I don't actually have any questions based on your testimony. I may have a question or two for James McKay when he comes up here, but are you located in Rhode Island, Mr. Gaida?
I am in Rhode Island. I'm sitting in my office in Providence right now.
Okay, well, I really appreciate your patience. We've had a long day with the prior measure on our agenda, but certainly appreciate you joining us virtually from Rhode Island to provide the testimony that you provided today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn to James McKay, who's the chair of our DC Uniform Law Commission. And we're going to hear from you on two measures today. And I think you may have been the first one in our hearing room today. You mind if I swear you in before we get going? You mind if I swear you in if you raise your right hand? And you got it. Okay. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide to the Council of the District of Columbia and the Committee on Business and Economic Development is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Again, I appreciate your patience. You got here really early, and you have waited patiently through a number of witnesses. And once you get settled in, you can begin your testimony. Hit the button in the base of your mic.
I thought it was a fascinating discussion. As a native Washingtonian, fifth generation, I'm really totally enthusiastic about making the decision.
Did you go to school in the District of Columbia?
Pardon me?
Did you go to school in the District of Columbia?
I'm sorry.
Did you go to school here in DC?
I was born in the district. I spent the formative years, unfortunately, I didn't, not in the district, but in Bethesda. And
Okay.
I moved back here in 1976, though, and I've been here ever since.
Okay, all right, awesome.
Well, good afternoon. I'm not going to repeat what Mr. Gaida said, but this is one of the many uniform acts. I'm the chair of the District of Columbia Uniform Law Commission, and the Uniform Special Deposits Act is one of the many uniform acts that we have given to the council that make the district a good place to do business, a good place to live, and they all, it makes the law certain. You know, we have more lawyers than any other per square inch than any other place in the world, and it's good to not have to litigate everything. So this purpose of this bill is to create a certainty. I mean, it's basically the examples. Three good examples are a potential buyer or seller of real estate or a business will there'll be a special deposit, and it would only be paid if the deal went through. A plaintiff, might have a special deposit, on the behalf of a lawsuit that it would be paid by the defendants upon that contingency, or a tenant security deposit is one of the prime examples, and the landlord would put the special deposit for payment to the tenants upon the termination of a lease. So these are very good examples. The law has evolved in different ways, but there's so many uncertainties. The advantage of this act is it creates certainty for the use of special deposits by banks and customers so that they will be properly executed, and you won't have all these surprise things happen. And it is an opt-in statute which is available to banks and depositors if they want to use it. They're not required to, and it has been, as you mentioned, been endorsed by the American College of Commercial Finance lawyers. Now, it has been, as you mentioned, it's been enacted by 5 states: Colorado, Delaware, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Washington. And it's also been introduced in additional 10 states: Arizona, Illinois, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New York, North Dakota, Rhode Island, Utah, and West Virginia, as well as the district. And other states are considering adopting it. So, I did attach a section-by-section analysis, which explains it, plus a lot of other materials when it was introduced. But I therefore urge the committee to report favorably on Bill 2632, and I would be pleased to answer any questions.
Yeah, it's hard not to report favorably on a bill that has such great testimony, both by yourself and your written testimony that you provided to the committee, as well as the testimony of Patrick Guida. It really laid out why this bill is important and how it's intended to help consumers. And so I imagine we will have full support from the committee on this measure.
Well, thank you.
So I'm going to let you stay there. You've already been sworn in. I'm going to turn next to the third and final measure on our agenda, which is Bill 26-35, the Uniform Commercial Code Financing Statement Forms Amendment Act of 2025. This bill was introduced on January 9th, 2025 by Chairman Mendelson at the request of the mayor and referred to the Committee on Business and Economic Development on January 21st, 2025. This bill, if approved, provides that the Recorder of Deeds may not refuse to accept a written initial financing statement in the form provided by the International Association of Commercial Administrators or in a form adopted by the Chief Financial Officer by rule. In order for a creditor to protect its interest in a debtor's personal property, the creditor is required to perfect its interest with the Recorder of Deeds. For those who are not as familiar with this process, which means most people in the city or America, perfecting an interest means that a creditor filed a financing statement with a government office so that the creditor's interest is legally enforceable and will take priority over other creditors' claims on the same property in the event of default or even bankruptcy. For the district, a financing statement must be filed with the Office of the Recorder of Deeds. Currently, the financing statement used to perfect an interest can be found in Title 28, Subtitle 1, Article 9-521 of the Code. The statement was codified in 2013 as part of a larger revision of the district's Uniform Commercial Code. Since this form was published in the code, the Office of the Recorder of Deeds has updated its practices and now requires a newer form that was developed by the International Association of Commercial Administrators, a professional association for government registry offices. However, the form within the DC UCC code section has not been updated to reflect these current practices, causing obvious confusion. We did have a public witness who had signed up to testify. We don't see him or her available at this time, so we're going to turn again to James McKay, Chair of our DC Uniform Law Commission. I thank you again for your patience and look forward to hearing your testimony on this measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a fix. It's caused by the fact that the filing forms are the International Association of Commercial Administrators, IACA, has changed its filing forms a little bit, but enough to make them different. And therefore, we have a dilemma here, and a lot of states have dealt with it. And this approach is what we suggest. The problem really is the fact that under the law, if a creditor files a financing statement using the statutory form, which is different from the one that IACA used, and which is not now accepted by the Recorder of Deeds, that nevertheless perfects the interest and it creates a hidden lien. Now, the simplest way is to, a lot of states have dealt with this problem, and I talked to the Office of the Recorder of Deeds, Bob McEwen, especially their general counsel, and they are completely comfortable with the solution. And the solution is to change the Section 9-521 of the Uniform Commercial Code to permit a creditor to use the IACA forms to effectively file the financing statement. And that is I think a very simple solution. And since the Recorder of Deeds is happy with it, I would hope this committee would adopt it. Thank you.
Yeah, you already answered my one question. Where does the Recorder of Deeds stand on this change? So
yeah, right.
And since they support it,
yes,
then I imagine it's something that this committee will support. I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but you all have laid it out in your testimony. I do appreciate your testimony here this afternoon. Again, appreciate your patience. I don't have any additional questions at this time, Mr. McKay, but thank you, and thank you to all the witnesses who testified on the 3 measures on the committee's agenda today. As a reminder, those interested in submitting written testimony for the record may do so until 5 p.m. on March 28, 2025. Submissions should be uploaded via the hearing management system on the council's website at dccouncil.gov. There being no further business before the Committee on Business and Economic Development, this marks the end of today's public hearing. The time is now 1:30 p.m., and this hearing is adjourned.